solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to the end of the week. It is Friday, y'all. We like to call it Friday, and we got a sound effect for that one, so hit it, man. Friday! Yeah, we're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon, and glad you are with us. And that is indeed JP on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
It's hard to believe it's Friday, but we're here.
It's Friday all day long.
All day long, that's true.
And it's weekend all weekend long.
It's tend to how it works, thank God.
I like it. The lovely Charlene is off with the grandkids right now, too. So, yeah. So it's, just, I don't know. I might stay here at the studio tonight.
She's on grandma duty? You're not on grandpa? You're not on cap duty?
They call her Sweetie.
Oh, okay.
So she's on Sweetie duty. And I got a call this morning before I left the house. Grandkids screaming in the background. They call me Cap. Hey, Cap! And then I heard my son said, she's already got them all sugared up.
Oh, great. That's what grandmas are for.
Well, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. And yes, by the way, that is what grandmas are for. We got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at the beginning of hour number 3, we've got Jay Town calling in. Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, going to be talking about the Comey indictment. So that's a big news doings right now in the world of law. And then halfway through hour number 2, as always on Friday afternoons, we got to take a step away from all of the madness, all of the politics, all the policy, all of the culture wars. Talk about some JP on sports. So yeah, JP's got a full slate for us with the 3 and out and the 2-minute warnings on JP on sports halfway through hour number 2. And then there's a triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So coming up first, Comey indicted. I mean, that's where we are. And there's more to add to the whole lawfare thing that's going on right now. But I don't mean lawfare like now. I mean like dealing with lawfare and lawfare losers. But Comey has been indicted. Yeah, we'll talk about that and what it means. Then number 2 on the Triple Dipper, military-minded. Have you heard that Secretary of Defense Hegseth has called a major meeting with pretty much all general officers and admirals, like flying them all in, like everybody's here for a meeting? Wow. A lot of people are wondering what that means. Military-minded, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, y'all, it's like Trump versus the world. I mean, every time we turn around, there are foreign governments wanting to meet. There are people wanting to make a deal. And there are, oh, by the way, others who are realizing very quickly they should have already made the deal and they didn't. And here's what happens if you don't. So we're going to talk about Trump versus the world because we are in absolute fact the alpha on the stage right now. The world stage, U.S. is the alpha. All right, that's what we got. We got a full slate. And, oh, by the way, time for the Rightside Way opening monologue. And let me just remind you guys, as always, that my brother-in-the-law, Stan McDonald, is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, 30-year practitioner in the practice of law, longtime conservative, sponsor daily of the Rightside Way, and I'll tell you more about him in a few minutes. All right, so, So former FBI Director James Comey was just indicted on counts related to obstruction of justice and lying to Congress. Somewhere, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn is having a fine day as he reads the headlines. And truthfully, I think that a lot of deep staters in D.C. just spit out their coffee. As a legal scholar, Jonathan Turley pointed out, D.C. is a town that runs on leaks and lies, and for Comey to be indicted for leaking and lying is a whole new day, and there are going to be any number of people who start deleting their text messages and scrubbing their emails. I'm going to dive into Comey's situation in a minute, but I don't know if you saw the other legal headlines or not. You see, tucked in between things like Comey and foreign policy and TikTok deals and economic indicators and more, there was a story that indicates that justice may actually be returning to the justice system. In fact, there were 2 stories. Because earlier this week, in a landmark smackdown that rivals anything from an MMA octagon, Atlanta District Attorney Fani Willis got her fanny handed to her by the Georgia Supreme Court. Now, she had previously received a shocking and well-earned rebuke of her misguided attempt to commit lawfare and abuse the criminal justice system to suit her own political grievances. The Georgia Appellate Court had determined last year that Fani Willis had so grievously committed acts of impropriety in her rushed zeal to get Trump that the only way to restore confidence in the justice system was to actually fully and completely remove her from the case. So the Georgia Supreme Court as of 2 days ago, has now declined to review that appeals court ruling against her, meaning that it sticks. Fannie's off the case, never more to pursue the matter herself. I suspect the Georgia case against Trump is now over. And as we all know, it never should have happened. And by the way, Fannie, she didn't lose her job, although that's still possible. The state bar looks at it and decides she ought to be punished with removal of her license. But without losing her job, she was fired, just like that. In other words, she did such a horrible job and committed such incomprehensible, impudent, unethical, and potentially illegal acts that the senior courts in her state won't even let her continue the case. Yeah, she didn't get fired. She was torched, and rightfully so. And by the way, the other case, as icing on the cake this week, disgraced former FBI agent Peter Strzok just had his lawsuit against the government thrown out this week. Yes, he did. Apparently, he was fired for cause, and the idea that his First Amendment rights were somehow violated did not sit well with the court. Look, these are weird times in which we live, right? Weird. And to some degree, these are unprecedented times. You see, in D.C. and other places, liberals have been haranguing conservatives in the courts for the past 4 years or more. Things like the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol, claiming it was an insurrection. People were locked up for the past few years without any due process because they were allegedly impeding the flow of governance. But yet, nothing was said or done about lawfare from the left. Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, James Comey, Peter Strzok, the whole cabal. Right. It is as if the world was captive to some madness, some kind of strange mental estrangement from reality where the narrative was twisted every day. Nothing beats the left's abuse of the justice system. I mean, Hunter Biden got a pardon for anything and everything he ever did or could have done for a span of a whole decade, while people like Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro and General Michael Flynn all had their lives ripped away by zealous prosecutors eager to get Trump. Keep in mind, it was Comey who authorized the entrapment interview of General Flynn that cost him his job as national security advisor and really cost him 4 years of his life. So yeah, prosecution on principle, not a good thing. What do I mean by that? I mean that it needs to be an evidence-based actual crime against the rule of law and the peace of society. But having an agenda first, a principle of getting someone at any cost, like when Letitia James ran for office and said her whole role in life was going to be to get Trump, using the court system to seek revenge or to outline a political agenda as opposed to simply making society safe, well, that's not what Lady Justice wears the blindfold for. That's called lawfare, and it needs to be abolished. Now, I'll be honest, some on the left are already screaming that what left-wing activist prosecutors and judges have been doing against Trump and other conservatives for years is what is being done today to James Comey. Possibly soon, maybe even to John Bolton, we hear. But let's not forget that while Comey may hate Trump, that he's allegedly a Republican, right? Yeah, how about that? Trump didn't go after a Democrat. He went after another Republican. Actually, it's not even Trump doing it. It's the system doing it. Oh, that's right. Oh, by the way, it's the grand jury doing it. Oh, that's what it was. It was something that was presented to a grand jury. It's an actual indictment. But yeah, Comey is a Republican, but he's also a leaker and a liar. By his own confession, James Comey intentionally leaked classified information to outside sources for the sole purpose of putting himself in a better personal position. He admitted to that. There's a recording, a video of him doing it. He testified that way. He also lied to Congress. And James Comey is also the man who pressed forward on the Crossfire Hurricane investigation of the alleged Russia collusion hoax that tore our nation's public discourse to shreds for several years. And to be honest, that level of recklessness to pursue something he knew had been fabricated and had been developed on behalf of the Hillary Clinton campaign, it could have led to any number of catastrophes on the world stage, to include even a war with Russia. Comey chose to wag the dog with Russia, 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 and then he lied about it, and then he leaked it, and then he wrote a book about so-called ethical leadership. Go figure. And he went on a speaking tour. He was the darling of the left. And now a grand jury has handed down an indictment, and Comey will get to spend his book advance on legal fees. Look, as an attorney myself, I have focused my 2 decades of legal practice largely on civil law. But within my firm, we have lawyers that practice civil and criminal and domestic and guardianships and real estate and bankruptcy, you name it. As an attorney, I believe strongly that my job is to zealously pursue and defend my clients' interests, but I also know that sometimes I have to advise my clients that what they feel is not the same as what they can sue for. That's why lawyers are sometimes referred to as counselors, because we're actually giving legal counsel, both good and bad. But I should also say that I take pride in my profession. As an officer of the court, I was sworn in having already provided all the information necessary for background checks, fingerprinting, the whole thing. I am sworn to also maintain my license by taking annual continuing legal education, which by law must include ethics training as well every year. And I'm not alone in that. It's the same for anybody who practices law. And maybe I'm just a small fry Alabama lawyer, you know. I'm not the district attorney of Atlanta or Manhattan or San Francisco, Los Angeles, Baltimore, whatever, all with George Soros funding my campaign. But I suspect that all those others that I just mentioned are supposed to be held to the same kind of standards, rigorous standards, and rules of conduct that I am. I know that many on the left right now are going to say, and already are, that the Trump DOJ is just doing the same thing that I just described, but I would dare say this is different. You see, Trump had nothing to do with Fani Willis getting fired. Her own courts did that. Trump had nothing to do with Peter Strzok having his case dismissed. Trump wasn't involved in that. And Trump was not sitting on the grand jury in one of the most liberal districts in the nation when they handed down their indictment of James Comey after hearing the evidence, which I'm sure included his own admissions of wrongdoing. Now, does Trump want justice against people like Comey? Of course he does. Why would he not? They tried to bankrupt him, jail him, dishonor him, ruin his businesses, ruin his family life. Of course he wants evildoers to face their day in a courtroom and give account for their actions. Wouldn't you? Comey will have his day in court. He'll hire the best attorneys he can find, and I hope that when it comes time to hear a verdict, that General Flynn's there sitting in the gallery smiling at Comey and watching as justice comes back around and karma sets in hard. Those rogue DAs and investigators who prosecute on principle, they might be practicing in a more liberal venue than the beautiful North Alabama area where I am. But nonetheless, the even and unbiased application of the law is still supposed to be the rule. And sometimes, y'all, it's not just the client that needs to hear things they don't want to hear. Sometimes the lawyer, the DA, the U.S. attorney, the FBI director, even the judge, might all need to be told things that go contrary to their personal notions. To step back, to objectively look at a case or a prosecution and make sure they don't have their own grievances, emotions, politics, and prejudices wrapped up in it. Somebody should have done that with Fani Willis. Somebody should have done that with Peter Strzok. Somebody should have done that with James Comey. Somebody should have told them the practice of law is not for vendettas, and lawyers should not be engaged in lawfare. And so, yeah, Fani got her fanny handed to her, and Strzok got struck down. And Comey, he's coming along for a perp walk. And it may have saved Lady Justice in the process, because they all fooled around and found out, didn't they? That's some lawfare karma right there, y'all. It's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, it's interesting to watch, and we'll talk about it in more detail. But Comey's indictment has rattled D.C. It has. Because like I said, like Jonathan Turley said, that's a city full of leakers and liars. And now all of a sudden somebody got indicted for it? Holy crap. Yeah, fool around, find out. Lawfare karma. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Folks, you're going to enjoy this one. I just had a conversation with Brian Dawson from 1819 News, president and CEO of an up-and-coming company that is making a huge splash in the state of Alabama. But listen, you're going to be amazed by his personal story. Brian Dawson, you talk about rags to riches. You talk about somebody who's been redeemed. You're talking about a guy who was looking at life in prison, who now has an amazing family, an amazing life, an amazing testimony of how the Lord has redeemed him, and who is, oh, by the way, making a huge difference in our state. Stay tuned. Just Right podcast coming up next. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Brian Dawson, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good. I got notes, dude.
All right.
I'm gonna start with a sort of introduction. All right.
Hit me.
You was born and raised outside the state of Alabama. Spent a lot of your time in Colorado Springs. Am I right?
Yep. And Derby, Kansas. Those are the two places.
Does that make you a carpetbagger if you came from out west?
No, west is not north.
Okay.
So yeah, carpetbaggers only come from the north.
All right. So you're allowed.
Yeah.
You were a white suburban kid.
Correct.
But your parents divorced when you're young. I know that. I can relate to that. But then there's this period of your life. We'll talk about it in detail here in a minute. You've been very candid in some of the other interviews and discussions I've even had with you. Crime, drugs, drinking.
Sure.
And then there became time when you were even involved with drug cartels and other things and spent time in prison.
Yep.
At one point, I know you were facing like just short of 400 years potentially in prison. But then you found Jesus. You found a beautiful woman. You found purpose. You found parenthood like 7 times.
Correct.
And
It's the number of completion, Phil.
Oh, well, there you
They
go.
say perfection and completion.
Speaking of which, we're going to get to the initials of all your kids' names too, which is very cool. And then now it's radio, media, 1819 News, president and CEO. So let's start. All right, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Early childhood, dude. How did you get to where you went?
Yeah. So interesting thing. I always like to, the more I learn about people and get to know people and everything, I realize who they are, where they're from, who their parents are matters a lot. And I also think, well, I'll just kind of go into that. So my dad is from West Monroe, Louisiana. He is a swamp redneck. He grew up with Phil Robertson.
Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty, okay.
Yeah.
Phil was about 7 years my dad's senior, and so Phil was the camp counselor at Camp Chioka in Louisiana. And so, my dad was like 10 and Phil was like 17 at the summer camp or whatever. But my grandma, Memu, as we call her, Betty Dawson, taught Sunday school with Miss Kay for 30 years at Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. So I say all that because it's neat on one hand that my family is close with their family or whatever, but also to give you, like, everybody knows the Robertsons and the swamp redneck thing, right? Like, they're swamp rednecks with money. But prior to them having money, there was a saying in West Monroe that the only people that were more poor than the Dawsons was the Robertsons. Okay, and the Dawsons was po, like they were super poor. Okay, I would joke and say
they changed that over time.
Yeah, so they did. My dad not so much. That's okay though. Went the middle class route, but my dad, swamp redneck from Louisiana. Grew up, I always say, back when poor people were skinny, had to hunt for food, garden, so that's that side of my family. And then on the other side, there's my mom. My mom, and we'll kind of get into a little bit more of her background later in the story as it's pertinent, but she was the daughter of a state senator in Colorado Springs specifically. And so my grandfather was a state senator. He ran for governor. He ended up running for Congress against Joel Heffley in Colorado. That was the only politics I was around for. All that happened before I was born, except for the run for Congress. And he has a country club background, right? And so you mix this swamp redneck with this country club, and this is where you get this amazing pedigree that sits before you.
Had this sort of Romeo and Juliet feel to it.
Yeah, I guess so. But that I really do think that plays a lot into who I am and how I go about things. But for better or for worse. But yeah, so they couldn't have been more different, and they got divorced when I was 2, right? Like who didn't see the writing on the wall with that one? So they got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom. That's kind of the knee-jerk reaction of the court system. At least it was back then. I don't think it's changed that much now. The knee-jerk reaction is give kids to mom. And had they have done any type of due diligence whatsoever and looked into the situation, they would have seen that was not the best place for me. And so when I was 2 years old, boom, I'm now living with my mom, seeing my dad every other weekend. And
where were y'all living then?
This was Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Yep. And so, my mom, God bless her, I love her. She did the best she could with what she had, right? And so I've worked through a lot of unforgiveness with my mom and with my dad, but just forgiving them and me thinking, I've forgiven them, but it's like, no, really. And then once you've forgiven them, you can actually see the appreciation that they did everything they possibly could. Now that I have kids, I see. But my mom had a very rough childhood, though she was from country club, lineage. She was sexually abused as a child. She, had all kinds of abuse and just horrible. And, so she had a lot of trauma in her life that she never dealt with. And so I'm living with her, and the solution.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down and some major ground. And also, by the way, saving the world one soundbite at a time. So, all right, I got a lot of stuff on the plate today, but the text lines are indeed open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it, give us your thoughts. James Comey, what do you think about all this? Let me, first of all, speaking of lawyer stuff, let me talk to you about Stan McDonald. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee up yonder in Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Listen, not only is Stan the kind who's going to advocate and fight for your legal needs and your rights, but he has been an absolute warrior for all the causes near and dear to the Rightside ruffian community for years. And I'll tell you right now, too, Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in any state, federal, local court. And I'll tell you right now, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your enemies would have no greater foe. So there's that. You need a lawyer in North Alabama? I'm going to tell you how to reach him. Attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee, America First Family Man, daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. Here's his phone number, 256-533-0202. That's 256-533-0202. And yeah, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no representation made, the quality legal service be performed is greater. Of course, I'm not saying that because it would be greater. How could it be greater? It's Stan McDonald. I like it. Yeah. Happy Friday, man. Happy Friday to you.
It is a happy Friday indeed.
It is a Friday. It's a Friday. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure I needed this Friday. Hey, by the way, next Thursday, Thankful Thursday, I'll be gone to CNN again. And I just turned in dates last night. They want me back almost once a week for the next month. So
nice.
That's all coming together.
I guess Abby Phillip actually likes you more than she leads on. Maybe she enjoys the back and forth.
Maybe they haven't had many people that just flat out stand up to her. I don't know.
I saw Ben Ferguson has been on there this week. He's done a great job. Scott Jennings as well with that. Maybe one time they just need to have an all conservative panel versus Abby. See how she likes it. That
would be a hoot.
Have Ben Ferguson, you, and Scott Jennings, and then have Abby be on the hot seat.
Whoop whoop! I would pay money to see me do that.
And then have Cornel West there for fun.
Nice.
He could be the fun.
You know what? And I would be fine with that too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll wait and see, but that is the plan. Next Thursday, like I said, next Thursday I will be out, but I believe that the ladies who were here before, Allison and Amy Beth, will be in studio with JP that day. I may have, just bear with me. I am still lawyer Phil too. I may have to miss part of the show on Monday. Just y'all have to excuse me. One day God's gonna let me have one job, but for right now, I've got to probably be in court for part of the show on Monday. And so just be advised, there might be a little difference in the programming schedule that day. Other than that, it's all good. All said and done, it's all good. All right, coming up next in a minute, we're going to jump right into Comey Indicted. You want to text in, talk about it, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Give me your thoughts on this. In fact, I guarantee you some of y'all have some serious thoughts. Like, I know there's people in this audience who've been like, where's the perp walk? I want the perp walk. And that's happening. I'm hearing there's more. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
She has is another man. And so I ended up with like 5 or 6 stepdads. I lost count. Okay. Now I will say, I know there's no way you haven't seen the movie or read the book, Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that was my life to a T with my mom. That was my life to a T. We watched that movie, and my mother and I were like, this is like maybe 6 months ago we watched the movie.
Together?
No. Okay. But I mean, I watched it. I was a wreck. My wife's looking at me. My oldest son, who's watched it with us, is like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah," it was a wreck. And I told my mom about it. My mom watched it. And she's like, "Oh my gosh," it was like PTSD watching it because it was so on point with that 2 to 10 years with my mom. And I always make the joke. Me and JD Vance are the same person. Except JD Vance, he got into the Marines and went to Yale, and I got into drugs and went to jail. But other than that, same person. But yeah, and so when I was that went on, watching my mom get drunk, taking pharmaceutical drugs, I watched her get beat by some of the men that she was with. Just not good formative years from 2 to 10, right? And so by the time I'm 10, I get into a big fight with my mom, and she, despite many court battles for my dad to get custody of me that he continued to lose, my mom just let go and said, "You can go live with your dad." And so when I was 10, I went and moved with my dad, and he was living in Wichita, Kansas. He worked at Cessna for the bulk of his career in Wichita, Kansas. So
I got to tell you, and sometime I'll tell you my whole story, but I didn't wind up in jail, but I was headed there.
Yeah.
Parents divorced when I was young, lived with my mom, did not respond well to multiple marriages. Mom finally gave me the ultimatum as we had a big blow up. She sent me to live with Dad, who, by the way, was living in London, England as an Army officer. And so
I like to say God had to give me a 3-year timeout away from everything that I was used to for me to find him.
Yeah.
Of course, you had a 384-year timeout coming.
Potentially, yeah.
So let me ask you, you're living with your dad. I researched before I sit down with you, and I'm watching other interviews you've done and stuff. And you said in one case that your dad's level of discipline and household, management was more what you needed, but you still wound up going down some roads.
Sure.
So you were, and I got to say, in going through all the news stories and things, your mugshot came up at some point.
A bunch, yeah.
And you were just a normal looking high school dude. You didn't have like body piercings and face tats, and you weren't doing gang signs in the mugshot. You just looked like a high school football player, which you were. Am I right?
Yeah.
But you also had this sideline gig of doing things that got you in big trouble.
Yeah. No, I'm an all-in guy. Whatever I'm into, I'm all into it, and that's just the way I'm wired, and it was no different than that. And so, going to the structure that my dad provided, but me still falling, I think that was a great tee up. I've never thought about it in those terms, and it actually makes a lot of sense. So, I'm 10. I move in with my dad. He's still not a Christian to this day. So if you're listening, pray for my dad. But he put a roof over my head. He got up every day at 4:30 in the morning and went to work. He showed up to my football games. We ate dinner every night around the table. Okay. He was what he was supposed to be as a father, and he didn't have a father. His dad abandoned them, his siblings. So he never had a dad. And so the gaps that he was filling in were those real basic gaps that he completely lacked, which was the providing, the protecting, those type of things. And so he generationally fixed that, that basic blocking and tackling gap that a father is supposed to provide. But some of the areas where I'd say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, where he fell short, he's not a real good communicator where he can sit down and say, son, let me talk to you about manhood. Son, let me talk like that. Those weren't his things. He showed up and he did what he was supposed to do. And very, very grateful that I had the time with him that I did. It definitely shaped and molded me. But when from 2 to 10, which they call formative years, those are formative years, right? And your formative years are not very formative. You carry baggage. And so I'm with my dad in this structure, carrying that baggage. And so I would get straight A's on the report cards, and I thrived in that structure, and I did good in sports. But underneath, I was angry. And my stepmom would always tell me, she's like, you're so angry. Why are you so angry? And
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the Southeast US of A on this Friday afternoon. I'm talking about this show. This one, it goes like from Huntsville back on over to Tuscaloosa. Or where does it go? Huntsville to Chattanooga. You know what? Sometimes I look over here and I read text while I'm trying to talk out loud.
Huntsville to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa back to...
Say it. Go ahead. Gadsden, where you are right now.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa on over to Gadsden, all the way down
to
say
that part. Say it.
You're put me in a trap here.
I did. Say it. Come on.
Nah.
Love this little village on the plains called Auburn.
The town Auburn, yeah.
Love this little village on the plains we call Auburn. War Eagle.
On over to now Fort Benning. Yeah.
If y'all think for a second that I use notes when I say that, I don't. That whole thing comes out without notes. That's why every once in a while I get distracted by something on my screen and I lose my train of thought. It's awful. All right. That being said, you can tell it's a live show. Hey, but you know what the point is? Whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a radio listener, or whether you are catching it on the live stream every single day, the bottom line is we know it and we appreciate it, and y'all mean the world to us. So thank you for giving us a reason to be on this microphone. Let me see some text lines here. TL from Huntsville says, happy Friday, Phil and JP. And I will catch the rest of it here momentarily. Then Mike from Athens is correcting me. It's not Secretary of Defense. It's Secretary of War. Okay, Mike, I was only in the Army for 30 years. Give me a break, man. I will catch up. Jeff from Indiana says, James Comey isn't the only FBI director that perjured himself before Congress. James Ray did as well.
about the Christopher Wray. Yeah. Christopher Wray did as well about the January 6th FBI infiltrator. So maybe he should be a little worried as well. I'll tell you the other ones too is Andrew McCabe, who was the deputy under Comey.
Well, did you see the revelation yesterday about all the FBI agents that were in plain clothes on January 6th?
275 of them.
275.
275 of them in the crowd. Wow.
Yeah. That's a bit different than what Christopher Wray and Comey were testifying before. So
how many of them were in the last Proud Boys march? Oh, I think all of them. Yeah. John from Huntsville says, Phil, fantastic monologue. Also, did you hear that apparently Sinclair is bringing the Jimmy Kimmel Show back? By the way, JP, did you hear the Americans are losing to the Europeans right now in the Ryder Cup?
They're coming back, though.
They're coming back.
America got off to a rough start, but then Trump showed up with the flyover, and then we came ready to play. So.
We know they're coming back because your dad called you about it at 6 a.m. this morning.
My dad called me at the butt crack of dawn to complain about what he was seeing in the Ryder Cup, because he did work with the past Ryder Cup team, and he had some reservations on how they went about it.
But, and he had some opinions.
Yeah. Why'd they pair him with this guy? You got to pair him with that guy. Yeah.
By the way, Jimmy Kimmel coming back. I mean, that's to be expected. If ABC is going to broadcast him again, Sinclair was holding out to make sure they knew. Sinclair said they were holding out until they knew how he was going to come on the air and respond. And I guess they were satisfied at some point. Susan from Huntsville says, regarding Comey, no one is above the law. There you go. Adam from Athens says, Phil, when are you going to hand the show to JP for a day? JP, when am I handing you the show for a day? Monday?
I don't know.
We'll talk about it. Adam is on your payroll, apparently. He says, also, I hate to say it, but I believe Bama's going to pull it out 21-17. He's predicting. He's laying it out there, 21-17 for Georgia.
I mean, Alabama is 6-1 the past 7 times playing Georgia. So,
okay, the past seasons, how are they going to do things this season is what matters.
I mean, DeBoer did beat. I was at the game last year. DeBoer won, but then again, this is on the road, so it's going to be interesting.
Are you at all any good company to be around when Bama's playing on TV? Or are you one of those that throws things around the room and gets mad?
Nah. I think I've only gotten that animated in like big championship games, but I will say. At Bryant Denny last year, after Alabama won, I did start barking at Georgia fans that were nearby because they got rowdy when Georgia started to come back. So
that's so awful. Although I will say too, your Aunt Charlene, the most animated I've ever seen her was the kick six. Came up out of her chair, swinging her arms like in windmill fashion around, and she's screaming at the TV as he's running back. I've never seen her do that before. Todd from Huntsville says, I want to know if an FBI tactical team is going to show up at Comey's house, or will he be allowed to turn himself in? I think he turned himself in this morning, didn't he? That was supposed to be the plan, that he was turning himself in this morning.
I was looking for a perp walk or something, but I haven't seen anything yet. So
yeah. Chris from Athens says, Colonel Williams, the monologue is always great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. He says, question, if when you're out, instead of replays or past shows, can you get more guest replacements? I think Scott Buttram, probably spelled that way. He said, yeah. He said, you have so many good guests. How easy it would be to get a stand-in? It's not hard. Just you can't predict the court, and then you try to schedule somebody, and then the court changes the schedule. So you sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, because I can't always predict what's going to happen. Then he says, JP does an all right job, I guess. I'm kidding. JP does a great job.
Thank you, Chris.
The last line of something, I got a long text from an anonymous. All right. If you want to tell us who you are, that'd be great.
We'll check that one off there.
Yeah. Okay. And then Tim from Madison says, is Auburn going to win this week? That is the plan. I think technically Auburn won last week. You laugh?
Well, I just find it funny because Auburn's AD put out a statement yesterday whining about the refs, which is, if you want to do that the day after.
The SEC did it first.
No, I agree. But I feel like there's a cutoff. Like, I feel like by like Tuesday, it may be time to move on. If you want to put out that statement on like Monday or Sunday, I get it, but unless,
my young Padawan, unless there is actually going to be an SEC confab this weekend to discuss what the consequences are going to be, and he's trying to influence it at the last second.
The SEC never does that. The SEC always likes to screw things up and then say, we're sorry, and that's it.
And then David from Hunt says, what's a perf walk? It's not a perf walk. It's a perpetrator walk. Perp walk. That's the slang term for when the cameras are taking pictures as the person who has been indicted has to walk in or walk out of the police station to turn themselves in. Steve from Athens says, if you would allow JP to do the monologue once per week, the show would improve. I know it's difficult for you to hear, Phil, but it's nonetheless true. Roll Tide.
What is going on right now?
I don't know.
David from Huntsville says, oh, thank you very much. And then David at Bucky says, Phil, 275 FBI agents in the crowd on January 6th, and they couldn't control the mob. Wonder what the mission was. Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is you can still find videos of people saying, let's go, and other people looking down and going, fed.
Well, our interview with the guy that was there, David, he said he had the feeling there were some people there to do a job and not to protest.
Yeah, exactly. And that there were probably also some paid protesters, to be honest. I mean, look at the way things work around the nation right now. You'll find the same, like all these university protesters, pro-Palestine stuff when they were seizing buildings last year and all that. Some of the same faces were showing up on different campuses. And the left doesn't want to talk about that because it's not all organic. No. They have paid protesters to go around and help do the rabble rousing. So there's that. All right, we're going to talk about James Comey here. So let's start the process rolling. The indictment, what does this mean? All right, he's not guilty. It is innocent till proven guilty. I get that. But the interesting dynamic we have right now is that a lot of what we're dealing with are things that Comey has already admitted that he did. He did. So yeah, Fox News, I've got this one right here. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted by a grand jury on 2 counts, alleged false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch, which means lying to Congress, and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Comey will reportedly turn himself in on Friday, and his arraignment is set for 10 a.m. on October the 9th. So he was going to turn himself in. I'm sure he'll bond right back out. He'll probably be released on his own recognizance. I mean, he's not exactly a flight risk, although he probably has the money to do it if he wanted to. But I don't anticipate him spending time in jail. He'll be processed. There'll be a mugshot. And then the arraignment comes, according to this, on October the 9th. So we got a couple weeks. At that point, he'll plead not guilty, I'm sure. And then we'll see the time frame being set for what's going to happen and when. The article points out that Fox News Digital exclusively reported this July that Comey was indeed under this criminal investigation by the FBI. It's centered on whether he had lied to Congress back during his September 30th of 2020 testimony. Now, somebody pointed out in a text earlier that we were looking at the possibility of Comey's, where did I see this, on social media maybe social media, that we were looking at the possibility of the statute of limitations running out like in a matter of days. And so part of this was going to be, it's get him now or get him never. So that's where we are. Now, that being said, I've heard it said you can indict a ham sandwich, and grand jury is not the same as a court of law. There's a little more latitude in grand jury proceedings. There's a little more room to work the evidence. There's not near as much in terms of cross-examination. But I will also say that the indictment was handed down in a venue that is notoriously liberal and tends to lean the opposite of, what the Trump DOJ's position would likely be. The judge assigned to the case, appointed by, was it Obama, I think? Obama, I think it was.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. All said and done, he's in a venue that he would probably prefer to stay in, but he's still got an indictment, and he's still got the issues that he has to deal with. And the fact is, he's admitted to me, James Comey is the reason why General Flynn lost his career with the entrapment interview that he did. You've got James Comey at the center of the Russia collusion narrative that just tore our country up for several years, knowing full well it was steeped in all kinds of, just the bottom line, it was not trustworthy. And it was all discredited. We had the Mueller investigation. We had all of it. And yet nothing there. A giant nothing burger. And yet Comey is the one who pressed it forward. Comey is going to have to deal with it. And then Comey admits that later on, when he was being terminated, he decided to go ahead and get information to an outside source to give to the press, believing that he could be used to help better his own position later. And he said so. So the whole thing we're dealing with a leaker and a liar. And he may wind up being legally not guilty. They may wind up not being able to prove the counts against him in a court of law. But the court of public opinion is dealing with him right now too. And he didn't want to do that. He was content to be the guy who wrote the book on ethical leadership. That's what it's called, ethical leadership. And yet we're talking about the guy who was over people like Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok. I mean, good Lord. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. More on this. And then coming up top of the hour, Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, going to talk to us about his perception of it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Stand. And I was angry at the world. And I was never really comfortable in my own skin. I had a lot of insecurity issues. And the only time I ever felt comfortable in my own skin is when I drank and did drugs. And so I drank and did drugs a lot.
Sort of a self-medicating kind of thing?
I definitely think it was a self-medicating thing. And once I kind of dove into that, I became the life of the party. I created a fake ID. I've always been somewhat, innovative. I learned how to create a fake ID, and then I could go get everybody alcohol. So I was like the coolest guy, in school. I could go get everybody booze and, party. But like everybody else would like party and go home and be fine. I would drink to the point of blacking out and not remember what I did. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like I was like a wild party animal. And then that went on to the point where I started to do drugs. And same thing, whatever I do, I do it all the way. And that happened there. And
But you didn't just do it, you were selling them too, right?
Yeah. And so how it started is, a little bit of weed, selling a little bit of weed, whatever. And then I would experiment with a little bit of cocaine or methamphetamines or ecstasy or whatever. And in that experimenting phase, I was still living in a suburb of Wichita called Derby, Kansas, with my dad. And
I got siblings, by the way.
So I've got, from my mom, I have a brother who has a different dad.
Okay.
And he's Brad, and he's 2 years, 2 months, 2 days older than me. Anyway, probably not pertinent to the story, but it's interesting. And then I have a stepbrother. When my dad remarried, he remarried a woman, my stepmom, who had a son that was my exact age. So we were in the same schools together growing up.
Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah. And he was also into partying and doing things, and also found himself in prison at some point in his life. So, I always want to go down rabbit trails, and it's like, I'm not going to rabbit trail, I promise. So that experimenting with some of those more illicit drugs, I snuck out one night to do that, and I came home after sneaking out thinking that because what I would do is I would sneak out, my bedroom would be shut, my dad would just get up and go to work. Well, he, for whatever reason that morning, needed something, and so he came in my room, and I wasn't in there. He's like, So I got busted sneaking out. And he took me to get a drug test, and I peed hot for every single thing on the drug test. And he was like, oh, wow. And so we kind of locked horns over that. And he said, you need to quit football and go to rehab, which is a really big deal. My team ended up 6A in Kansas, as big as it gets. They don't have 7A there. Yeah. And we were predicted to be the 6A state champs, or at least going to state.
What position?
I was defensive end, and they were going to move me to nose tackle that year. Which was really interesting. I was like 225 and ran a 4.840, but they wanted me inside. Anyway, I won't get into that, but yeah. So that was my, I was really, really excited about my senior year, years and years of playing football, wanted to do that. And he's telling me I got to quit to go to rehab, or I can quit football and go live with my mom in Colorado again. And so I packed up all my stuff in my car, and I drove to Colorado. And that was the biggest mistake of my life.
So mine wound up being the most impetuous good decision I ever made, because I got caught sneaking out of the house. So I was drinking and smoking starting in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't self-medicating, I don't think. And it wasn't a lot. Yeah. But it was there. And I was hanging out with a bunch of pot smokers. And mine was more along the lines of, you said I can't, so I'm gonna. Yeah. You said I can't, so this is what I'm gonna do. Sure. And it was just like that live on the edge kind of sense, 4th grade though. Yeah. I mean, who does that at 11 years old? But nonetheless, Mom caught me sneaking out of the house in 7th grade again, and gave me the ultimatum: what do you want to do here? You want to go live with your dad? And I just went, yeah. I mean, that was it. There was no thought. There was no preconceived, I've been looking for this opportunity. There was no, I think this is a good idea. It was just get back at Mom.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah. Just the opposite, though. Mine wound up being the best decision I could have made. Totally impetuous.
Yeah.
But I did it. So you wind up in Colorado, though, brother.
Yeah.
Colorado weren't good for you.
No, that's 2002. Go back to Colorado. Start, I was already about 3 weeks into my senior year in Kansas in my football season. So I uprooted and moved to Colorado and then went to school sort of. Like I didn't hardly ever go to school. By the time I moved in with my mom, it was free reign. I could do whatever I want. But my brother was driving for a drug dealer. And so I would ride around with them and watch him. He'd have, stacks of cash. All the guys wanted to be him. All the girls wanted to be with him. Pounds of drugs, like what's not to love, like this is, kind of the thing I'm infatuated with. And here's this guy doing this. And so I kind of went to work for him selling a little bit of weed. And then I started getting into cocaine. Cocaine's expensive. In order to do cocaine, you have to sell cocaine. And I always say when I tell my story,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I've got a couple more thoughts on this situation with Comey before we get to the top of the hour discussion with Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, on the same thing. I will say this. Somebody pointed out to me on social media, it had not occurred to me, so credit where credit's due, that it's very interesting that James Comey is dealing with all this without having a Biden pardon. Reckon why that would be. No Biden pardon, you say? Interesting. So, Biden just like issued out pardons like candy. Just laying them out there, just like throwing them to the wind. It was kind of sick. And James Comey has no pardon from the Biden administration. You got people that got preemptive pardons just in case they'd ever done anything wrong. Come on. Anyway, no pardon for the Biden administration. The other piece of this, though, that's very telling is that part of the reason why you're seeing the indictment right now is because the statute of limitations was due to run out, I think, next Tuesday. Has a 5-year statute of limitations on the counts that he's now charged with. It's a very narrowly construed indictment. 2 counts. They didn't do a big blanket. They didn't do a shotgun approach. They didn't try to throw in everything but the kitchen sink. They didn't try to make it so broad that it would also appear to be overreach. They said, here's what we got, and we're going with these 2 counts, which also probably means that those are the counts that is most likely to be able to be proven. But yeah, we've seen any number of investigations on Crossfire Hurricane. We've seen any number of, we had the Mueller, we had the Durham, we had all kinds of things going on. We're also hearing right now that John Bolton and former CIA Director John Brennan may also be under criminal investigation for similar issues related to the Trump-Russia probe. But then you got to look at it and go, my gosh, think about things he did that may not be in these counts, but James Comey is no saint. Like, for instance, one of the things that really still pisses me off the most is what happened with General Michael Flynn. I told my wife before Flynn took his position with the first Trump administration that if I could ever work for that guy, I would. It's one of the very few people that I could see from a distance and decide I would work for that guy. I always appreciated his commentary, his candor. I appreciated his military background. And what happened to him was a travesty of justice. It was literally Comey who sent guys over to interview him, knowing full well there wasn't much there. And the actual agents who interviewed Flynn didn't even believe that he had intentionally lied to them about in his meeting with Russian diplomats. Like, they asked him questions. He's like, I don't recall that. And Comey and his investigators decided to push for charges anyway. And they drained Flynn of his personal resources. They threatened to indict his son, and they ultimately secured a guilty plea. And it took Trump pardoning him this year for him to get his life back. They could care less about people. Right now, what we're looking at is Comey is actually accused of having taken classified information. He was a leaker bar none. There's a scathing report that came out from Inspector General Michael Horowitz, found that Comey had been a leaker who had violated FBI policy as the director in his handling of FBI memos. including those that were containing things like code names and true identities of sensitive sources. And then he leaked it by his own admission. He said he did. He leaked it to his friend, who's a Columbia law professor named Daniel Richman, who then, oh, by the way, took it to the New York Times. He did it to basically get a personally desired outcome. He wanted to set the narrative in a way that he felt like benefited him. So he leaked information he thought would be helpful. And then you got Andrew McCabe, who worked for Comey at the time, said that he believed that Comey had instructed him to leak the information. And so he did. And Comey denied that under oath. And then James Baker, FBI general counsel, close advisor to Comey. He also told investigators he was under the belief that he had been ultimately instructed and authorized to provide more information to the Times. And it basically sets up a situation here. You got McCabe and Baker, who are supposed to be friends with Comey. All of them hate Trump, but now they're going to be in a position where McCabe and Baker are probably going to have to testify to something that Comey says didn't happen. Who's lying? So he's facing 2 counts, making false statements and obstructing congressional proceedings. That's found under 18 USC section 1001. And we'll see where it goes. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. I think DC is going to be watching this one.
Can I ask something real quick before we go to break? Why is it, do you think they didn't give Comey and Brennan pardons? Do they want them to be like the sacrificial lambs or something? Like,
that's a great question.
You would think they pardoned anybody that they could get their hands on, essentially. And if they actually were trying to pardon people that Trump's going to attack his political enemies, then you would think Comey and Brennan would be on the list of people that would pardon. So I'm wondering, like, I get the feel of like they're letting these guys be sacrificial lambs almost because they know they did something, and they're probably going to get, rightfully so, the DOJ to go after them. I don't know.
I think there's a couple of reasons. On Comey, let's not forget that even though Comey was a complete turd when it came to doing things the right way, he also was still seen by many as having done some things that help hose Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So she's probably still in the mix, stirring the pot. John Brennan, though, just the opposite. At the same time, I think if they had issued pardons on Russia collusion, it would have indicated that the White House was very involved in issues related to Russia collusion, and they didn't want to bring that narrative forward. So that's the main reason, in my opinion. All right, we're taking a break. Coming right back. Former U.S. Attorney Jay Town, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Makes me good at what I do for a living now, which is sales, networking, and persuasion. It's the same skill set I was using then, the exact same thing. And so I went in a very short amount of time from selling, little bits of marijuana to next thing you know, I'm selling cocaine, and next thing you know, I'm selling lots of cocaine. And in a period of 5 years, I racked up 6 felonies, and all of it was drug or stealing things to buy drugs or getting in a high-speed chase with the cops or whatever. But I, went from selling little bits of marijuana to the point where I was pushing large amounts of cocaine and methamphetamines for cartels in Colorado Springs.
That's before it was all legal out in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now they let you take over apartment complexes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just,
now you can just bring your gang and have at it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, in going through getting ready to sit down with you today, and I've heard your story before, but I've never heard all of your story before.
Sure.
But you didn't just go to prison. You were on the run for a while, and
Sure.
then they caught you swinging on a rope out the window trying to get away from a drug bust.
Yeah.
And I am of the understanding that at some point, Dog the Bounty Hunter was offered the opportunity to track you down, and he declined.
Yes, and I don't think he declined. I don't think he based off of. Well, so I'll just tell the story. That's
You
what
have
we
to.
do.
Now
That's
that
what we
I've
do.
asked
We have to
about
tell
it.
stories. Yeah. So here I am. I've now racked up 6 felonies. That 6th felony was the doozy. Okay, and the 6th felony was, I was already out on bond. I was already on probation, and I'd been up for 3 or 4 days. Found out one of these guys who had informed the cops about some legal activity that I was involved with. Found out that he had just come into some money, and he owed me money, and he also narked on me, right? And so in that world, you don't do that. Those are the rules. Okay. You don't do that. If you want to play in this society, you don't do that. Now, a lot of people did, but there was an enforcement mechanism called me. Okay. And if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to find you and I'm going to hurt you. That was the way it worked. And he wasn't the only one that I did that to, but he was the one that ended up telling the cops again. So I went to his house. I'd been up for 3 days, strung out on meth, pound on his door. He answers the door. I said, he's like, hey man, what's going on? I just immediately said, why'd you tell on me? And I didn't tell on you. I walked into his house, pushed him. Why'd you tell on me? I didn't tell on you. And I just started to beat him relentlessly. And the guy that I was with, so the way that it reads in the charges, and it's because they only wanted me to go down. They didn't care about the other guy that was with me. I was their target, okay, for the cops, law enforcement. I was the one running all these drug rings and theft rings and motorcycle theft rings and all this stuff. So they were after me. And I wasn't going to tell on the guy that was with me, but this is what actually happened versus what if you read the articles online and the charges and stuff. I was tasing him and beating him and tasing him with a taser and beating him, trying to get him to admit that he told on me. Well, the guy that was with me had a blackjack, which is it's not makeshift, like you can buy them. Yeah. It's got like a mechanical spring inside of it with a heavy piece of lead with leather wrapped around it. Yeah. And he hit him square in the forehead with it. Boom, his head explodes. Blood goes everywhere. Was not the intention of that visit, okay? My intention, I actually was friends with the guy and liked the guy, but he had broken the rules. And so I was in there to make sure that he understood that you don't do this. The guy I was with cracked his head open. Blood went everywhere. And I'm like, well, at this point, we're done, okay? Like, this is over. And after he got hit in the head with that, he admitted that he told on me. That happened, but that was not the intention of this meeting was to go that serious and that far, but it did. And once it did, I just started grabbing computers and anything that was of value. I told his brother, I said, look, if you guys don't pay us, pay me the money that you owe me, I'm going to be back and that's going to be you. And I walked out. And so they hit me with attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. That night I got arrested again.
That's go away charges right there.
Those are go away charges. Yeah. For a long time. And it was my 6th felony. Right. So my 6th time I've been arrested and charged in separate cases. And so I got arrested that night. I went to court basically, and they dropped the attempted murder down to 1st degree because it didn't fit. And so my arraignment, I don't know what they call it. You're a lawyer. I'm not. Although after being in prison for a little while, you actually kind of turn into one. But they dropped it to 1st degree assault. And so I was charged with 1st degree assault, aggravated robbery and extortion and a slew of other things, but those were the heaters. And so I'm in there for 2 weeks and I get bonded out again. And so now I'm out on several $100,000. No, I think it was like $135,000 worth of bonds, if I remember correctly.
Who posted bond?
There's so many rabbit trails I could go all the way down. I just don't know how interesting they are. There's this girl, I think her name was Lisa, that she was just infatuated with me and thought the world of me. And she went and used a credit card to buy a bunch of Xbox 360s that were out at the time and then sold them and got the money to bond me out.
No kidding.
No one's ever got that story, Phil. You're the first that got that story. That asked that question. There you go. But yeah, I ended up bonding out and knew immediately that if I go to court, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to court, which now makes me a fugitive because I missed my court date, right? I'm on the run. And the plan was, I had a friend, Spider. He and I were supposed to, and Spider's a very bad dude, like very, very bad, Hispanic guy. He was part of the Sereno gang. And we were supposed to go down to California with his people and then go into Mexico. That's what they do on the movies. We felt like it was a good idea. Only problem is we never got around to doing it. And so I ended up on a number of occasions, the cops ended up finding where I was, but they didn't have a warrant and they weren't sure. And so there's a couple different ways that I was able to get away when I was on the run. Yeah. And that infuriated them. Okay.
This is how long? Like several weeks?
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. And so you had, at the time, there was Officer Mork and Officer Goldbranson, which were with Colorado Springs Police Department. But then you had Sergeant O'Driscoll, who was the head of the Fugitive Task Force and Crime Prevention Unit.
You still remember their names?
Yes, I do. And there's a story in that too. This would have been 2007. Oh. Yeah, and so Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, not only was he on the Fugitive Task Force, he was part of the Crime Prevention Unit. So even before I was a fugitive, both Mork and Goldbranson and Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, they were dedicated to bringing me in and taking me down. Okay. Because of, the threat that I posed in running these crime rings or whatever. And But the crime prevention unit and fugitive task force, it was ran by Sergeant O'Driscoll. They ended up they have like unlimited budget, work with the feds, all this other stuff, and so they were on me. And so I got away a couple times, and finally June 19th, 2007, I am in what we deemed my safe house, and Spider had given me a nylon rappelling rope to tie to the bottom of this 70s red.
Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday, y'all. Welcome to hour number 2. We're going to get you all the way to go home time on the Friday afternoon. In the meantime, though, we're going to continue this conversation about the indictment that was just handed down from a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia against former FBI Director James Comey. And we spent some time talking about it here. I mean, he's facing 2 counts right now, false statements and obstructing congressional proceedings. I think it's 18 USC section 1001. But the reality is, the interesting thing is this, one of these charges is the exact same charge he helped conjure up against General Michael Flynn. Let that sink in. Karma, courtroom karma, I'm calling it. In the meantime, though, let me bring in somebody who knows all about courtrooms. Jay Town is the former U.S. attorney appointed by Trump, and he's also now one of the principals at Radiance Technologies. Jay has also got a long career as a prosecutor, not only a U.S. attorney, but a prosecutor otherwise, and a military JAG officer in the Marine Corps, and he's on the line right now. Jay Town, how you doing, buddy?
My man, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. All right, so give me your thoughts, dude. Unvarnished opinion, indictment. What do you think?
So, look, people need to understand a couple of things. First of all, 18 U.S.C. 1001 is not a particularly novel charge. Essentially, it just means you lied to authorities or you lied to Congress, right? Some agency during the course of their duties, their official duties, which certainly sitting in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th, 2020, that's an official duty of the Congress. So there's nothing novel about it. And then as far as the obstruction goes, which I think is the more serious of the 2 charges, the obstruction is not just, I mean, you tell a lie to obstruct or impede an investigation. That's essentially what the obstruction charge means under the federal code. The problem Comey has is the evidence in this case will not just include, they're not just going to run a tape of his testimony before the Judiciary Committee from 2020. They are going to be able to go all the way back to 2016 and use the comments that Comey was making. And the reason why about the Russiagate hoax, because it'll fully inform and contextualize his testimony in 2020. And there was a great deal of prevarication in that testimony. I stand by my previous testimony was his answer several times to Senator Cruz, for instance. Well, then you got to go back to that previous testimony in the context of that. And so it really will be an interesting sort of dragnet of Comey's own words. And remember, this guy couldn't shut up.
Yeah.
From the moment he got fired, he couldn't shut up. He's written, I don't know how many books now, done 1,000 interviews. He's always the smartest guy in the room. Just ask him. And in my opinion, the worst FBI director, perhaps in history, but certainly has done more damage to the Bureau than any in my lifetime. And Chris Wray was paying the bar tab for Jim Comey for the entirety of his tenure, and now Kash Patel's trying to clean it up even further. So he's got some serious legal problems here because neither one of these cases are terribly difficult to prove.
And I noticed it was a fairly narrowly construed indictment. It wasn't like a broad shotgun blast of anything and everything under the sun. They've got 2 counts. They basically narrowed it down and said 2 counts. This is what he did. What are your thoughts on that level of indictment?
So they actually tried for a 3rd count, as far as we know, only 3, and the grand jury declined or no-billed that 3rd count. Now, that might signal to some folks, well, this must be entirely a weak case. No, what it says to me in deep blue Alexandria, Virginia, is that this was actually a very thoughtful grand jury. because they still came back with a true bill, an indictment on 2 of the 3 counts. They just didn't like the third one for whatever reason. All right, fine. Grand juries do that all the time. That's not uncommon. And so, this grand jury gave it a lot of thought. They knew who they were indicting. They knew what this meant for, publicity and the office. And they very thoughtfully came back with this 2-count indictment. And again, this is not like a OJ trial. This is 2 weeks tops, maybe a week. If I was trying, it'd be a day and a half.
No kidding. Well, so let me ask you this. I got a couple more questions on it. What do you know about potential sentencing? Let's say they find him guilty. What's he facing?
Mm-hmm. Well, Roger Stone did what? He got sentenced to what, 4 years?
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It was the same charges, right?
Yeah. General Flynn was gonna serve time. A number of people. Remember, I'm old enough to remember when people just didn't comply with a congressional subpoena, much less lie to them.
Yeah.
And they did time, right? So these are jailable offenses, and he was appearing, at least in 16, and that's the testimony that he's referencing in 2020, in 16 and 17. He was the FBI director in March of 2017 still. He was representing the Bureau. He was the chief law enforcement officer for the FBI. And so, it'll be interesting. And we don't know a lot from the indictment, by the way. We're speculating about which false statements he made or which statements were false in that September 30th testimony. We think we know. We think it's the stuff with Ted Cruz, but the indictment doesn't tell us, and we haven't seen all the evidence that the government has. I can bet you, though, Phil, that there are several people that used to be in Comey's circle, like an Andy McCabe or a Jim Baker, who was the chief counsel for the FBI. These individuals, I'm wondering which one is going to testify against Comey first.
Well, that was my question. My next question was, Jonathan Turley did a write-up on this, and he said that one of the most interesting dynamics of this is that even though all of them hate Trump, Andrew McCabe and Jim Baker are in the position right now of, despite having been close associates of Comey, they've said openly that they felt like they were, told to go ahead and leak information or make statements. And so right. It's going to be their word against his word, and yet they're all allegedly close associates. So this is going to be one of those like, oh my gosh, who's lying now?
Right, and Comey has been asked in several interviews, which could be evidence too, about those statements that Baker and McCabe have made. And Comey never expected to be in this position, and so he would just say simply, I remember it differently or whatever. It wasn't sometimes it was, no, that's not what happened. But again, that typical Comey, John Brennan, Clapper prevarication of, maybe not, or I'll be cute with my words. I'll say that the CIA did never assess. And that way, I'm not suggesting that I had any involvement in this at all. There's this huge, swath of 20,000 employees that assessed it, not me. You can't blame all of us. So it's just little things like that are actually going to be haunting in trying to defend James Comey for whoever his defense lawyers are. I'm sure I'll know who his defense lawyers are, and I'm sure they're very qualified people. But I think it's a much tougher case than Jake Tapper and MSNBC, pick a host would like to believe.
Yeah. So you mentioned something though that was going to be one of my last questions for you was the fallout. I think the statute of limitations on these charges was going to run out next Tuesday. There is some speculation that there are others though that are being investigated that could be under a similar statute of limitations. John Bolton, John Brennan. We hear they're under criminal investigation right now. Do you expect there to be more indictments handed down within the same framework?
So 2 things I want to say about this. The answer is yes. I do expect Bolton, especially. We just saw recently a search of his home and his office.
Yeah.
Brennan testified, I believe it was 22 or 23. So I don't think, and that testimony is much the same as his previous testimony that would be up against the statute. So I don't know that's necessarily going to be statute limited. But the declination memo. This is how we learned that Comey, 48 hours before Comey was indicted, we learned on NBC News that, Comey's indictment is imminent. Well, the reason that was is because every U.S. attorney, when in their office, the AUSAs will write a prosecution memo or a declination memo. We're going to prosecute the guy, or we're going to decline to prosecute the guy. And the declination memo, the contents of it haven't been leaked, but the fact that one existed and that the previous U.S. attorney and then the new one were both briefed on it, and at least one or both of them disagreed with it, so they decided to go to the media about that. One, that's a crime. Leak of 6E information about anybody, even pending charges for a grand jury, is contemptuous of court and a crime under the Federal Criminal Code and the rules of court. And so that's A, but B, it was really meant to undermine this new U.S. attorney and the Department of Justice. This new U.S. attorney is not going to walk this case into court. It's going to be done by the professionals at EDBA, who have an army of lawyers, prosecutors there, or folks from DOJ, or a combination of the two. But it's very troublesome to me that the AUSAs in that office, if you don't believe that the DOJ was a member of the deep state, if you don't believe that they had been infected by in politics, and that's why you saw all these firings when Emil Bove and Todd Blanche and Pam were getting in there, then you don't understand the reality of this particular agency. To have a bunch of kids come up to a presidentially appointed person and then leak their thoughts on the matter to the media just to scuff them up, that's the type of disgusting behavior that should be fireable, could be prosecutable.
Well, more to come on that, I'm sure, because the current mode right now within the Trump DOJ, like you said, is to lop off heads, and leakers are no longer considered to be just go ahead and put it on fair notice. DC, you just saw a leaker and a liar indicted, and I think that DC is on eggshells right now, walking on eggshells. That's what I hope. But yeah,
the find out phase has begun.
It has indeed. I'll say it the cleaner way: fool around, find out. That's what I'll say on the air. But yeah,
there you go. I can cost you $1,000
no
fine if you want me to say the whole thing.
We got a red button right here with your name on it if you do that. So, all right, Jay Town, former U.S. attorney. Appreciate your thoughts and insights as always. Spot on, and we'll have you back on if something develops, man.
Best to you, Phil. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
We're taking a break right now, but there you go. I mean, you're hearing the scoop. This is the way it's looking right now. Leakers and liars are suddenly on notice. And Washington, D.C. is made clear there's a new sheriff in town. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And he's like, if you got to get out, you go, because the front door is, there's a hallway in these apartments, and then you go from the hallway into the apartment, and the only way out would be down the window, out the window and down on the ground, and it's third story. And I'm like, I'm never going to use that. That's crazy, but I did. Every 18 inches, I tied a double knot, so I could climb like that. And, I woke up June 19th, 2007, not thinking anything, just another day of being on the run. And I was in my living room.
One of your interviews, you said you woke up at 3 p.m.
Yeah, it was that afternoon. And it was that afternoon. I was, again, smoking weed, doing drugs, and, your circadian rhythm gets a little off in that situation. And so woke up that afternoon. It was a weird thing that you remember. I was cooking bratwurst and watching the Chappelle Show. And I looked out the window, and the way that it's set up, there's an apartment building here. And every year I go to Colorado Springs and I take my family. And this year I took my 15-year-old son, and he's heard me tell this story a million times. And I'm like, here's the bill. He's like, this is just like the building you said. I said, yeah, no, it's because it's where it happened. Okay, like I'm telling you. And we go and we look, and there's an apartment building right here. This is the apartment building I'm in. And I saw the front end of a cop car sticking out. And I knew, okay, they're here. They're here. And so I kind of frantically, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, then all of a sudden I hear, boom, 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 Colorado Springs police, open up. They kick in the door. And I look, it wasn't my door. So I said, they don't know which apartment I'm in. They're kicking in every single door in the apartment on the third floor. All they knew is I was on the third floor. And so you've been in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're clearing rooms as though this was Afghanistan trying to find me, okay, in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. I'm like, okay, well, I look at the rope and this is my only option. And so I kick the screen out, throw my backpack out with all my stuff. And the only piece of furniture in the whole place was the TV and the retro recliner. Okay. That was it. And so I wrap the rope around my hand and I jump, boom, and it sticks exactly how it's supposed to. It's, wedged in the window, and I'm hanging there. Well, what I didn't know in that back parking lot, there was a surveillance van.
Oh, yeah.
That blends in with the rest of you wouldn't have known it was a cop car or whatever. It was a surveillance van. And they called it in. Someone's trying to jump out the window. I think we got our guy, and then 50 or 60 cops. They weren't going to miss me again. Come swarming from the outside. Like you couldn't see them because they were right here.
So the jig was up at that point.
The jig was up. Yeah, the gun's drawn. Get on the ground, as though I had another option. Gravity necessitated that down was the direction I was going to go, and so I unwrapped my hand, fell, and hit the ground. Thankfully, didn't break anything. They put their knee in my back, cuffed me, put me in the back of the cop car, and that was it. June 19th, 2007.
So I'm fascinated by two things in the story.
Sure.
One is you still remember the cops' names.
There's a story for why, but go ahead.
Well, and then I may get back to that story.
Yeah.
But the other is you take your kids and you show them exactly where this happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot into, you're obviously a different person today.
Sure.
I know the guy who did those things, but I don't know the guy who did those things
Sure.
because you're a different person. But that being said, you're pretty transparent with, and you have 7 kids, by the way.
Yeah.
You're a prolific breeder,
Yes.
but nonetheless, you've got a beautiful family, 7 kids, but you're telling them what's happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What's can I ask you real quick? What's their response when they hear about Dad before they knew Dad?
This is a great platform to share the gospel with your kids, right? But the older ones, it's a warning. Proverbs talks about the fool. Dad was a fool, right? I was the epitome of the fool, and in Proverbs and really throughout the scriptures, it talks about a fool. And I didn't seek wise counsel. I didn't receive instruction. I didn't receive discipline. I didn't any of those things. I rejected all of it, and this is where I ended up. And so I don't think it's set. So I've got a 15-year-old, got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. Okay. The 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 9-year-old are the ones that really wrap their minds around what I'm talking about when I talk about being in prison and, cops chasing me and that kind of stuff. The rest of the ones are younger, and they're just like, wow, Dad, you used to be bad, but now you're good. Like they don't have any, but it will eventually form like their understanding. And it's something that I want them to always know. And the thing I always point them to is like, 1, don't be the fool, receive instruction, receive wise counsel, obey God and obey your parents. But also life isn't perfect. And if you stray, you can never stray so far that God can't get you. Right. And if God saved me, he can save anybody. And that's not cliche. It's literally, let me tell you about something. But again, specifically my 15-year-old, I drive him all around Colorado Springs. There's not a corner I didn't commit a felony in that city. Okay. And I drive him and I'm like, I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. Like, this is who I was. You need to know and understand that, right? And so,
Proverbs. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, I'm going to get some text messages and keep caught up with that because you guys are some texting machines here on a Friday. You want to chime in? Give us your thoughts. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Yep, you can text it or you can call it. Matt from Madison says, sounds like a coup d'etat. What are we talking about? I don't know. I don't remember. What's the coup d'etat? He sent that at 2:42 p.m. So what were we talking about back then? I got to look back and see. I guess what he's talking about is the efforts by Comey and others to do their things on the side and try to get their way, and now they're fooled around and found out. Joe in Tennessee says the FBI who were at January 6th were or DEI and paid by Soros, not anymore. Okay,
that's the thing of like I can't even steel man the best argument as to why there would be 275 FBI agents in plain clothes to stop something. They didn't stop anything. There's 275 of them. And if they were there to stop something, it would be people going into the Capitol. Like the opposite happened.
And I'll be honest, they probably weren't there to stop anything, to be honest with you. They were probably there to take notes and to and to basically snap a few pictures here and there so they can get after people later on. But I think what we're also going to find is they had opportunities to warn people off, to say, don't do that. I suggest you not. And what we're also really concerned about is that some of them might actually have been stoking people, which could be entrapment.
Well, there's that one video of this guy with a mask. He's got like one of those pull-up masks, and he's at the Capitol, and a window was partially broken already, and he ripped the window out, threw it to the ground, and a guy nearby him points and goes, "Hey, dude, what did you?" And the guy tries to pin it on the guy that caught him and like pushes him, be like, "Knock it off, dude! Stop it!" Like trying to pin.
I hadn't seen that.
And it's like, that's a little bit weird. A masked guy breaks a window and then blames another guy that did it. It's like, it's just, there's so many events about that day that
there
are
were
weird.
That day is going to go down. That day is right up there with Area 51 and, and who shot JFK and all of it. It's just, it's got so many mysteries wrapped in conundrums inside of puzzles. David in Huntsville says, I love what Comey did to Hillary Clinton when he reopened the email investigation right before the 2016 presidential election. Yeah, that was weird. And I think that part of the reason why he was uncovered, if you will, he was not left with a pardon and all that, is because there are some who believe that Trump got elected in part because Comey sort of left a taint on Hillary Clinton, if you will. But then the other piece of this, though, is I really think that the Biden White House couldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, because to give him a pardon for Russia collusion would be like to say the Biden administration understands all the details of Russia collusion that they said they knew nothing about. So there's that. Dave from Capshaw sends me a meme. Babylon B again says, a new report indicates only 3 people in January 6th crowd were not FBI agents.
And they didn't go in the Capitol.
Yeah, boy. Dustin from Hillsborough says, Phil, it was nice to meet you at the Charlie Kirk event. Yes, it was, Dustin, and I appreciate you walking up and introduce yourself. I love it when I get to put a face with a name. He says, when you say the lovely Charlene, you ain't lying. Well, thank you very much. He says, well done. JP, are you pulling the Marines over the next 3 days, or pulling the Marlins over the next 3 days?
Why would I? Doesn't help the Braves. They're out of it.
You can't just find another team to root for. You just got to.
It's funny.
I know what I'm asking.
It's funny the Braves did go on a 10-game winning streak like a week after they got eliminated from the playoffs.
Holy cow. Like, where have you been, guys?
Go figure.
Thomas from Athens, I saw the pressure was off.
Yeah.
Thomas from Athens says, regarding the FBI agents in the Jan 6 crowd, John Solomon of Just the News is reporting that many of those 274 rank and file FBI agents disclosed on the AAR, the After Action Report, about Jan 6, but 50 pages of more disclosures of several years preceding Jan 6 about, I don't know, this is like a detailed email or text. He says, yada, 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 the AAR was kept hidden. That's the point I was about to say. From even congressional oversight by James Comey and Christopher Wray until this week. Yeah, it's sick. All right, music's playing. We're taking a break. I got more text messages, but don't worry, we're coming back right now. We're pausing all the politics and the policy and the culture wars, and we're going to talk some JP on sports. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Raise up a child the way they should go.
Yep.
When they get old, they won't depart from it.
Yep.
All right, brother. So you, the jig was up. They got you. The officers whose names you still recall were a part of the task force that brought you in, and you're staring at 6 felonies prior before you even got to this point, and now you've got this stack of felonies, and you're looking at 384 years potentially. Sure. So you're looking at life in prison at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
But you negotiated.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate for yourself, or did your lawyer do a good job?
It's a mix, but there's a bunch between that. But yeah, it gets into mediation. But there was 9 months between then, and in those 9 months, they take me to county jail. I'm facing 384 years in prison. At least that's how my public defender described it, because how it works, and the numbers are shaky in my head, but I have to do the math. But either way, each charge that I was charged with gets doubled because I was on probation and on bond, so they can double it. So they enhance it.
Yeah.
And then they times it. They can times it by 4 because it's the habitual criminal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can break it all down with math or whatever, but the habitual criminal. So if you have 3 felonies, they call that, I'm not going to say what they call it. It's the B word, the little B word. And if it's 4 or more, they quadruple your sentence, and they call that the big B word. Okay. Habitual. Anyway. So I was at 6, so I'm times 4. and then so they stack, and then they times it by 4, and then that's where that comes from.
This is state, not federal, right?
State, Colorado State. Yep, Colorado State prison.
It didn't wind up being 384 years, but you still got a pretty stiff sentence.
Got a pretty stiff sentence, and the transformation really began in county jail. So I was in county jail for 9 months, basically holding out, and that's part of your negotiations in county jail. Is like, well, I'll just sit here until you bring me a deal that I want, right? And they'll only do that for so long. But it is, some people just want to get in there and they plea and they go to prison, But I was gonna, bide my time or whatever. Well, I'm now in county jail thinking I'm gonna go do the rest of my life in prison. That's how I'm seeing this. And so I'm in there thinking I have to create this reputation of being a bad dude, so when I get to prison, people won't mess with me. And so I do, and I'm hanging out with all the wrong people in there. I catch one assault case. They put me in the hole, then send me to another unit. I'm there for a little bit. They bring in another guy that had told on one of my friends. And I had to go beat him up really, really bad. Caught another assault case. So I caught 2 assault cases in county jail. So on top of all my other stuff, I caught 2 more assault cases. They were misdemeanor assaults, but they're still assault cases. And they put me in administrative segregation after that. So they're like, okay, you don't play nice with others.
That's solitary, basically.
Solitary,
right?
Correct. Exactly what it is. Yep. Solitary confinement. You're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. You get an hour out to make a phone call and take a shower, maybe do some push-ups or whatever, and you go back to your cell. That's what you get. And I was in there for about 4 months, okay? And so it was 9 months total, 5 months out, 4 months in ADSEG or solitary. And in that stay in solitary, God began to open my eyes. I don't believe he saved me yet, but he opened my eyes to the fact that it was my fault that I was in there. And this is huge. I was just reading a Rick Burgess's new book last night because I'm going to interview him later today. But it like that was one of the chapters when it talks about just rugged accountability. Like you have to take accountability for your actions if you're ever going to repent. And this was the beginning of me realizing, because up to that point, I blame my mom for my circumstances. I blame my dad. I blame the judge. I blame the cops. Da 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 da.
No more victim.
Exactly. And but what was wild though, I really believed I was a victim. Like I wasn't just saying that to get out of trouble. I really believed it, which is weird. But God, in his mercy, opened my eyes like, no, dummy, this is your fault. Sure, does your mom and your dad play a role? And oh, yeah. But your choices got you here. They didn't beat that guy up. They didn't jump out the window. They didn't, sell drugs. They didn't do those things. You did those things. Yeah. And so when I realized that my bad choices created the bad circumstances, that was extremely liberating, because what it meant is that I was free to make good choices that would then create good circumstances.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all talk about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Say it with me, Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in. And that's just, oh, by the way, just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show, looking inside the studio on video while listening to it on audio, live streaming on places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook, and our website, rightside.media.org. And then, oh, by the way, there's all y'all that podcasted after the fact, catch things up afterwards. Listen, a ton of y'all do that. Doesn't matter where you catch the show. Doesn't matter where you hear it, before, during, or after. We really appreciate you. The fact that you do that means the world to us. You're the reason why we do it. So thank you very much. All right. This is that time once a week when I like to just sit back in my chair and enjoy the fact that my friend JP here has got a guru level knowledge of all things sports. He also, oh, by the way, has the best sound effect of all of them, courtesy of sorority girls at Auburn. JP on sports. Hit it. JP on Sports, brought to you by Inspire Advisors. And oh, yeah, we got 2 rounds of it. First is a 3 and out. Next is the 2-minute warning. 3 and out, brother. Go.
We got the best college football weekend so far of the year up tomorrow. Well, first, there's Oregon at Penn State, which is a whiteout. By the way, if you haven't been to a whiteout, I highly recommend it. I've been to a whiteout. I got family up there. I have a cousin that's actually on the team right now. But if you've never been to a night game whiteout at Penn State, it's quite something. So Oregon is going to be going into very hostile territory. But this is a big-time matchup because these are 2 high-ranked teams, but both teams are really untested so far. Penn State has really played nobody yet to this point of the year. Same with Oregon. So this is like the first big test of the year. Oh, yeah, it's up against Oregon. And for Oregon, it's going to a whiteout at Penn State. So stakes are incredibly high in this one. You also got Bama going to Georgia this weekend, which is the biggest SEC matchup of the year.
The hedges.
It's an interesting situation because Alabama, like I said earlier, has had Georgia's number 6-1 over the last 7 years. But people are saying, okay, it's DeBoer. Even though DeBoer did get a win against Georgia last year, it's like it's not the same as a Saban Alabama team going to Georgia. So there's a lot of questions. Also, Alabama, I believe the number is 2-5 on the road under DeBoer. So it's going to be hard going on the road in SEC territory. If Alabama drops this game, that's already 2 losses going into or past week 5, and it pretty much got to play perfect while also going to South Carolina, going to Auburn, having to play Vandy, LSU, Tennessee. So this game is a must-win for Alabama going to Georgia, in my opinion. You also got the Magnolia Bowl, which is Ole Miss, LSU. Auburn playing Texas A&M this weekend. So across the board, it's a fantastic weekend of football. I also had this caveat. I thought this was really cool. Charlie Kirk was a massive Oregon Ducks fan.
Oh, yeah.
He was actually planning on going to this Oregon Penn State game. He had tickets for it. So to honor him, TPUSA is setting up a tent, and they'll be selling 5,000 of the Freedom shirts that he was wearing when he was shot.
Wow.
Also having a register to vote table at the tent as well. So I thought that was pretty cool way to honor Charlie at this game, which, he loved Oregon. So perfect reason to continue to honor Charlie Kirk like that.
That's cool. That's very cool. So, and that's on Penn State's campus, obviously for the whiteout. So that did Penn State have any beef at all with them setting up the tent? Do you know?
No,
I wouldn't think so.
No, I wouldn't think so. I think that area is a pretty conservative area, but also, it's out. Penn State's obviously allowing that to happen, in the tailgating area. So I think they're going to have a big turnout of kids going to that tent.
Yeah, and rightfully. And they'll probably sell out of 5,000 shirts. What do you bet?
I bet so.
All right. Good stuff. That's 3 and out. That's 1. What's 2?
Ryder Cup started today.
Woo!
Big time, man. I love it. It's so awesome to love the Ryder Cup. USA versus Europe. The fans are always awesome. The turnout's always big and very passionate fan base. The U.S. though got punched in the mouth figuratively this morning. They got out 3-1. Europe, got the morning slate. So how it works is there's 4 pairings. 2 Europeans versus 2 U.S. Guys, and they got 4 of those pairings. And the first round was alternate shot this morning, and then the second round in the afternoon was best ball. And the U.S. right now is playing better, although it's still pretty close. As I look right now, Scheffler's group is down 3. Bryson DeChambeau's group is tied. Justin Thomas and Chris Young's team is up 5 up on the Europeans, and then Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy are up 1. So it's pretty much even right now. But I think what helped turn the tides, Donald Trump did show up to this event after the rough morning. I think this is a little bit of a morale boost here with Trump showing up. I'm playing a video over here, getting a massive ovation at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Had to fly over during the national anthem. And Trump, when Bryson DeChambeau came up to hit his tee shot, Trump actually left his very much protected seating area, walked out in the open and down to the tee box there. My first reaction was, that's pretty bold of Trump to do that. But also I think that just shows, how much he loves not just golf, but being with the American people in something like the Ryder Cup. That was really cool.
Wasn't Kathy Hochul booed? Did she show up at that? Was that where it was?
It may have been. It wouldn't surprise me. But there's one quick clip also I want to play 40 seconds here. This is Rory McIlroy, the star European player from Ireland. He's talking about how even though he's going up against America, how much he thinks America is the greatest country in the world and how much it's done for him. Okay. I think it's important to play. So here it is.
Everyone wanted to make it in America. It's the land of opportunity. I still believe it's the greatest country in the world, and if you come here and you work hard and you dedicate yourself, you can be or do whatever you want. I am unbelievably grateful and lucky that I got to come to America early on, and I think success is celebrated here. I think there's a wonderful sense of work ethic, and yeah, as you know, I live here. My wife is American, my daughter is American. You know, I have a lot of affinity towards this country, and I think everyone that lives here should have that same affinity, because it is a wonderful place. Wow,
that was a class act.
That was really cool. The star European player he probably loves America than some Americans do, on the left side now. But I thought, you know, with all the rivalry and such, I thought that was still really cool of him to say such a thing.
That's outstanding. Yeah, love that. Is that just two? That was two. Okay,
two.
What's three?
So I talked a little bit about this earlier in the week. I did my podcast on this, but I thought it was important to talk about again because it's still continuing to happen a little bit. But Bruce Pearl, who retired as Auburn's basketball coach earlier this week, the reception that news has gotten from some talking heads in the sports world, I think, are just inexcusable and lazy.
Yeah.
Because, you know, well, obviously there was rumors that Bruce Pearl was going to run for Tuberville's Senate seat. He will not be doing that for, you know, mainly eligibility reasons, I think. But still, really ever since October 7th, Bruce Pearl has been very vocal in the political world. He's been on Fox News. He's been, you know, going up to D.C. So he's been making it clear where he stands on, you know, the issue of Israel. And obviously he's Jewish. He was the coach for the Israeli national team several years ago. So it's kind of, gee, I can't believe that this guy's pro-Israel, you know, like it makes sense. But the smears that he's been getting from people like Michael Wilbon, who was very supportive of players kneeling during the anthem during BLM, and actually was shaming players for not using their platform to talk about the George Floyd situation. He went on, pardon the interruption, and talked about how he hopes that Bruce Pearl was pushed out by Auburn for being so vocal about politics, and that he used to like Bruce Pearl, but he doesn't anymore. And it's one thing. By the way, he's not the only one. There's been several other talking heads that I guarantee you can't even point to Gaza on a map or know anything about politics that are smearing Bruce Pearl because they can't even take the effort to educate themselves on what he actually believed in. But it's one thing if they were like, you know, I just disagree with Bruce Pearl on, you know, his stance in the Gaza war. I'm pro-Palestine, or I think Israel's going too far, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, fair enough. You're actually disagreeing with him on what his actual stance is. But they're smearing him because they see him as a Trump guy, and they think that he's enabling racists. There's also some people saying, well, Bruce Pearl, he made this one post about Charlie Kirk, so clearly he's a racist. He's not in a position to lead black men. That's the stance they're taking. That's the way they're smearing Bruce Pearl. And like I said, it's so lazy and like just do some actual journalism, okay? Bruce Pearl's players love him. Auburn loves him. And this is somebody who lives in Alabama and is an Alabama fan. Like, it's clear that Auburn loved Bruce Pearl. And I don't think it's fair for them to go the route of saying, well, this guy was a racist and this guy was racist. And I'm glad he's gone so that his black players can now have a coach that's not a racist. Like, it's incorrect. You know, like if you want to attack him on what he actually believed in. But the insinuations and the assumptions that they've been making on national television, just so blatantly obvious, it's just not fair, in my opinion.
How much of those insinuations and accusations do you think are designed for clickbait, and how much are like that's their way they feel about it?
I think that's how they actually feel about him. If you see the Wilbon clip, it's like a borderline passionate reaction of like, yeah, I'm glad Bruce Pearl got pushed out. I hope somebody talked to him. So it's how they actually feel, and it's just like I said, it's embarrassing, but it's not fair. He deserves better than just lazy smear attacks from so-called journalists. So,
but those same people won't say a word when, you know, Caitlin Clark is beat up on the court or something like that. You know, absolutely. All right, man, that's 3. I think you finished in good time. We're going to a break. Coming back, we'll have the second round of JP on Sports. We do that one as the 2-minute warning. He's got 2 minutes on every story. I've got a timer and a buzzer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Epiphany that went off in my brain. And so as much as you can in a cell by yourself, I began to start taking ownership of my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions, all that kind of stuff. So much so that my family really began to because I would have a phone call a week. That's all they would give me. Not that I could call them every day on my hour out if I wanted, but my family would pick up the phone once a week. They'd cut me off. I'd burned every bridge.
Wow.
And in those weekly phone calls, my family started to notice a huge change in my attitude.
Who'd you call?
My grandma Barb.
Okay.
Yep. And I would call my grandma Barb, and usually it would be on Sunday night, and my mom would be over there, and my brother would be over there, and and so they'd pass the phone around or whatever, and I'd talk. But they specifically, my grandma Barb is like, something's changed in him, and everyone, and a lot of people in the family told grandma she was crazy. You just got a soft spot for Brian, whatever. But she's like, no, I feel like something's changed. And
Is that your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
That's my mom's mom.
Okay.
Yep. Meanwhile, my dad's mom, the one that was teaching Sunday school for Miss Kay, Scott Beeson, when he interviewed me, said, who was praying for you? It was a good question. I said, well, Betty Dawson was. And lots of credit goes to her for that. But Grandma Barb, she began to really believe in me and believe that there was a change that had happened, so much so that she, so in this time period, that 4 months that I'm in there, I guess about 3 months into my ADSEG stay, my public defender came and said, okay, Brian, the district attorney, she was like really excited to give me this deal like it was a good one.
Your attorney was?
Yes, a public pretender. And she comes and says, Brian, this is great. If you sign this deal, you're only going to get 32 years with a crime of violence. And I'm like, amazing. When you're 23, 384 and 32, there's not a lot of difference, right? And so I was not real excited about that. So I called my grandma and I said, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Because the way it works in Colorado, it's way different than it is in Alabama. On a 32-year sentence with a crime and violence sentence enhancer, which is another way that you have a crime of violence, so they stack your sentences, then they aggravate it, and then they multiply it. So it's basically they're just going to throw everything they can at you. If you go to trial, and she explains this to me, if you go to trial, this is what they can do to you. But I tell my grandma I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and she reaches out to these attorneys. She's got a little bit of money. She doesn't got a lot of money. She's just reaching out to these attorneys. They're like 60 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand to represent. He's got 6 felonies.
I'm underbilling myself apparently as an attorney.
Yes. Well, if you get into criminal law and you got a guy with 6 felonies, you should probably charge him. But they're like, and she's like, well, I can't afford any of that. And I said, go talk to Jeff Barker. Jeff Barker's got a great reputation for being kind of an up and coming new lawyer who's just really, really good. And she goes and sits down with him, and he's like, look, best I can do is $10,000, and if he goes to trial, I need another 10. My grandma says, I don't have another 10. He's like, well, he ain't going to trial, so I'm not that worried about it, right? So he's like, okay, $10,000, and so he ends up becoming my attorney, and we're a little bit long for him, so I'm going to go into some of this because this is really cool. I've never told this part of the story in any media hits, and so now I'm up against the wall when I try to retain this attorney. The next day, I've got to take my plea or I've got to go to trial. So they've got witnesses showing up for my trial that day. So if I don't take the plea, I go to trial.
You're down to knuckle dragging.
Knuckle dragging. And you're an attorney. You kind of know how some of this stuff works. Yeah. The judge says, you don't get a new attorney, buddy. No, he's not your attorney. Your attorney is this lady, and you either sign the plea or you go to trial. I'm like, my grandma's like, my new supposed to be attorney's like, and the public defender comes over and she's like, hey, I don't know how this happened, but one of the witnesses in the case got stuck in traffic or whatever, and she's not going to be able to be here. She has to get back to work. And so they had to delay it, and they punted for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I'm able to have him retain, and he gets me into a mediation hearing. And in the mediation hearing, this is really cool too, negotiation tactics. They were never able to. So what a mediation is, they have a retired judge. His name was Judge Toth. I'd be in one room with my attorney, is how it's supposed to work. And it's supposed to be at the courthouse. And I'm in one room, the district attorney's in another room. I'm with my attorney, and Judge Toth goes back and forth. Okay. I think I should get 8 years. Well, we think you should get 32. Well, I think I should get 10. I think it's basically like horse trading. Okay. Well, we couldn't get our calendars to line up to get it done at the courthouse, so she had to come to the county jail on Martin Luther King Day on her day off Okay, and she's in there in her pajamas. The deputy district attorney, she's in there in her pajamas. She's absolutely pissed that she's there, and I can see this. I'm like, she doesn't want to be here. I've got 384 years. I've got nowhere to go, and she obviously doesn't want to be here. So I just kept dragging and dragging and dragging.
We discovered years ago. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just bulletproof influence, man. Bulletproof influence. That's where we are. Hey, we're back to round 2 of JP on Sports. And this is the section we call the 2-minute warning. I've got a timer and a buzzer. He's got 2 minutes per story. 2 minutes starts right now.
Well, I'm going to keep talking about this story as long as this story keeps going on and keeps making progress. But they actually released pictures of what the UFC White House event is going to look like. And
wow,
look at that. So we were one. By the way, if you're not on the live stream, you're not able to see the picture. But it's a lot more seating than I anticipated on the top of my head. But if you're not seeing the picture, it's got some overhead, lighting with the White House as the backdrop and about 5,000 seats surrounding the cage.
5,000.
Yeah, I believe is what the number was. I could be a little off on that if I remember correctly. But yeah, so it's a little bit more flamboyant and, I don't know. I'm not sure if I had that image in my head. I'm not sure if I hate it, but it's definitely a lot more of a big ordeal than I think they talked about it to be in the beginning.
They really are going to put. How do they even put that on the White House lawn?
That's the thing is like the White House lawn only can hold so much weight, and the cage alone is 2 tons, and that's more than the lawn can hold. So it's going to be interesting if this stays, okay, because there's still a little bit of time before the June event that this would be. I think it's the week before July 4th next year is when this will take place. But that's a big ordeal to have go on. I think Trump has put Ivanka in charge of this. So I think Ivanka and Dana have been having several meetings about it. So obviously not Trump himself, but I don't know. I continue to throw it out there as this begins to progress. If this looks like an idiocracy to people, or if this is just a way to celebrate America and celebrate in a way that's a little bit fun. But also I can understand, guys shirtless beating each other up in front of the White House may not be the best look to some people, but it's real. It's not a joke.
As opposed to the transgender topless pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. I mean, they may have to move this thing to the Washington Mall just to get all the people on it. I mean,
well, there's also, they're going to have the weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial. So.
Stop time. There you go. Weigh-in at the Lincoln Memorial. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Reset the clock. Next 2-minute story. Go.
So Gary Cohen, who is a Mets broadcaster, has been getting a lot of heat for a statement that he said, because Cubs rookie Matt Shaw was very good friends with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a big Cubs fan. He went to several games and was, meeting players, taking pictures with players. But Matt Shaw was a good friend of Charlie Kirk's. Matt Shaw was invited personally by Erica Kirk to be at the memorial. Was it last Sunday?
Yeah.
And Gary Cohen, Mets broadcaster, when the Cubs were playing the Mets, and Matt Shaw, who missed a game to go to the Charlie Kirk Memorial, was up to bat. And Gary Cohen goes on to say, I don't want to talk about any of the politics of it, but the thought of leaving your team in the middle of a race for any reason other than a family emergency strikes me as weird.
Wow, really?
He said that on the
audacity,
the broadcast. And yeah, exactly. The audacity, Charlie Kirk just passed away. This is still very raw, okay?
Yeah.
And you're talking about a guy who went to a funeral of a friend of his. This is not like some guy who never met Charlie Kirk, who just, agreed with his politics, wasn't personally invited to the memorial, but decided to take a day off to go to the memorial anyways, which even if he did that, that's still not an appropriate thing to say, in my opinion. But this is a guy who knew him personally. So a friend of his got killed. He was invited by Erica Kirk to be there, and he decided to support the widow of his friend. And because he did that, Gary Cohen deems that as that's just weird, in my opinion. It's completely inappropriate.
What's weird is that someone would even say something like that. I mean, this kind of thing happens all the time. And if that's his friend and it's a national event and he needs to be there, you know what? You may be a player, but you still got life. You're still a real person.
Yeah. And by the way, during that game, Matt Shaw went 3 for 4 after he said that. So I guess he had a good game anyways.
Nice. There it is. And reset the clock. And how we doing on time? Yeah, we got it. Go.
Well, I talked about it earlier, but I have to bring it up again because I think it's a funny / interesting conversation about the statement that Auburn's AD put out, because it has been getting a lot of backlash from people, from Auburn fans included, of was that appropriate at that time to do that? Let me say this. Auburn very much got the bad end of bad officiating.
Yeah, they did.
SEC officiating is awful. They clearly don't even know the rules of the game that they're officiating, because apparently before the game, Oklahoma talked to them about the fake substitution screenplay that they were going to run, and apparently they got the green light. Said, nah, that's not against the rules. You can go ahead and do that. And
what?
Now,
I had not heard that.
And then let it happen in the game, just for it to never be a rule to begin with. That on top of the fumble that they deemed an incomplete catch. No pass interference called on Cam Coleman. Auburn has every right to be frustrated and upset because they got screwed by bad officiating who don't even know the rules. But how does it look though? Like, if they would have put that statement up immediately after the game, that would be one thing. But do you think it's a good look by Thursday to put out a statement and say that Auburn got the bad end of bad officiating? Is that like past the cutoff, like I said, of being able to do something like that? As an Auburn fan, do you think that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I mean, it's still within the same week. I mean, it's before the next game. I don't think it's a big deal. If he said it the Monday later after the next game, I'd say, come on, dude. But
so you think as long as it's before the next game,
and I think there's probably a reason why he said it when he did, and we don't know that reason. But I think he was probably influencing a potential decision being made by the sanctioning body at the SEC.
Who knows? Yeah, we'll see. But I don't know. I just, like I said, every right to do a statement like that. I just think the timing, it's like you're not allowing the team to move on at that point.
Speaking of timing, you're up. There it is. We got time? Yeah, I think you got time, don't you? We got about
a little bit of time.
A little bit of time. Take some overtime. Ready? Go.
Well, I just wanted to provide an update because I'm looking here. The USA, Justin Thomas's team, has officially beaten Hoggerg and Oberg from the European team. So the U.S. has finally taken another from the European team, trying to close that gap in. We still got Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy one up. Scotty Scheffler and JJ Spawn, which is the best, you look on paper, best player in the world, U.S. Open winner of this year, paired up. And Straka and Rahm are currently 3 up on them right now. So some concerns of people of how Scotty Scheffler is playing, not up to standard, but USA is struggling to make a putt today, which is a little bit concerning. It is just Friday. You got to get 14 and a half rounds to win. So a lot of golf left to play, but US just stole another one. So
a lot of golf USA. Left to play. All right, that's it. Wow, that's it. That went fast. JP on Sports, as always, brought to you by Inspire Advisors. I'll tell you more about them in just a few minutes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Hour number 3 coming up. Time to buy a car is right before the staff leaves for a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's like go.
So you're in that mode right now. All right. She's in her pajamas.
It's snowing outside, and she just doesn't want to be there. And so I keep dragging and keep counter-offering, and she loses, and she says, that's it. 15 years with the crime of violence. That's my final offer. No way with the violence in your crime and the assault cases that you've caught in county jail, these 2 extra assault cases, will I ever drop this crime of violence? And so on a 32-year sentence with a crime of violence, you're going to do 24. Okay? So that matters. It's a huge, like, you're going to do more of your time.
Yeah.
And then on a nonviolent, you're going to do maybe a third of your time or less. Okay? So I'm heavy focused on that crime of violence. Like, okay, we got her down to a decent year range, and I don't know where this came from. It had to have been a God thing. And I looked at my lawyer. I said, you don't tell Judge Toth anything. I said, you walk in there to that district attorney, go tell her that, my client doesn't want to end up in he wants to change his life. He doesn't want to end up in a maximum security prison with swastikas all over his face. He wants to change his life. He's willing to give you a year if you drop the crime of violence. And the way their thing works is like, I get 16 instead of 15, cha-ching, and all of a sudden all that, conviction about crime of violence just went out the window.
So she got a trophy, basically.
Correct. Yeah, and so I gave her the year, which is that's good for her. So she drops the crime of violence, and I get 16 years with no crime of violence is what I ended up getting sentenced to. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that is crazy. You are into sales.
Yeah, and I was the happiest person ever to be sentenced to 16 years. Like, yay, 16 years in prison. But again, everything's relative when you face it to 32 or 384. Yeah.
All right. You said in one interview I saw with you, I've forgotten, it's some folks that you had known, but they have their own podcast, Emily and somebody else. I've forgotten the guy's name, the husband and wife team. That,
Chris and Emily, yeah.
Yeah, Chris and Emily. But at one point you said in that solitary confinement where you began having that epiphany about accepting responsibility for your own actions and you're not a victim of that, you felt like God had thumped you.
Yes.
But you still weren't there yet.
Yeah.
But then you started meeting and hanging out with a guy who, in your words, what I saw was he began to drop seeds of the gospel in your life.
100%.
And was that in prison? Was that in county jail? Where was
Prison.
that? That was prison.
Yeah. So here I am. God thumps me on the head and shows me it's my fault.
Right.
Shortly after that, I get into this negotiation hearing.
Right.
My heart's softened to the idea of God and him working in my life.
Because he has been.
Because he has been. And then I get 16 instead of 32, so now I'm looking at getting out in 5 years instead of 24 or never. So I knew God had moved. And so I'm like, okay. But I was always open to God. I always prayed to God. I always knew that God was real. I had some experiences in church growing up that were like bad experiences, but good experiences. I don't know how to really describe it. Like these people had something that I wanted, but I also saw how judgmental and kind of hypocritical that they were. Yeah. And so I was just like, but I knew that God was real. And so I prayed. Like when I was a kid, I prayed. Through my addiction, I prayed. When I was a fugitive, I prayed a bunch. And when I was in county jail, I prayed even more, wondering about what my sentence. So I knew God was real. But I didn't understand how Jesus factored into it. And no one ever really taught me about Jesus. So I was agnostic. I knew that God was there, but I didn't understand how it worked, right?
Yeah.
And so I get to the first prison I get to is called Huerfano County Correctional Center, which is in Walsenburg, Colorado. You go in there, you got in Colorado you wear greens, and so you got your greens on, and you've got a couple extra pairs of greens and a couple pairs of state issued underwear, like a cup and a spoon, and you walk into your unit, and the thing slams behind you, and you're now in your unit. It's got 120 guys in there. You're like, okay, what's about to happen? Because the new guy comes in, fish, fresh fish. And here comes this big, huge dude with a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm.
Oh, former Marine, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, always a Marine, they say. True. I've made the mistake of calling him a former Marine. I've been corrected 17 times. But he walks up and reaches out and shakes my hand. He says, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian, and this is a faith pod." And so all the movies that were going off in my head about the doors slamming and someone coming up to stab me having to fight to see if I was tough, like there's all the things that I thought could have, would have, should have. But this big, burly, huge dude who definitely could have beat me up is like, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod." That wasn't on the, on the bingo card. That's correct. But not on the bingo card. Yep. And I'm like, okay, Charles, what is a faith pod? And he goes, "Man, we do discipleship in here, and we do Bible studies, we do discipleship, and I take seminary classes on the weekends, and we do praise and worship every single morning." And they did. And
he's saying words you don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out of here immediately. That was my response to that.
Put you in the cult ward.
Get me out of here. You ever seen Happy Gilmore when? Anyway, there's the scene with the lady in the old folks' home where she falls and "Get me out of here." But that's how I felt. I was like, I got to get out of here. But it's prison, and it turns out you can't get out of there. Who knew? And so I was stuck, and it was a good thing. And Charles really just became my friend. He didn't browbeat me. He didn't, he wasn't over the top. He was my friend, and. You get in there, you don't have coffee, you don't have soups, you don't have, sweats, you don't have any of that stuff. And so he gave me, all those things. Like, here, you need some of this, you need some of this. Hey, if you need anything, let me know. So he just became my friend, and his conversation would turn to a subject or a situation. He would kind of Socratically ask me questions.
He would weave Jesus into it.
And he would weave Christ into the questioning and say, "Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that?" And I remember one of the funniest ones he did was, this is pre-saved Brian in prison, okay? And I'm talking about, girls and having sex with girls and all this other stuff. And Charles just looks at me, he's like, "But wouldn't it be like so much more beautiful if like you just didn't have sex again until you got married?" And I died laughing so hard and just pointing at Charles like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? Flash forward, that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. And it was because of that question that happened before I got saved that Charles did. So he's or go ahead.
No, I got to say, so part of my weird resume is that I spent 7 years in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life.
Yeah.
Which is headquartered in Colorado Springs, by the way. I spent time in Springs because of that. Yeah. Love that city. Probably back when you were actually messing up things. But we called it relational evangelism.
Yeah.
It was earning the right to share your faith is what we called it.
Yeah.
And it was like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday. Yes, indeed. I got to catch up on some text messages. You guys want to text in, call in, same number for both, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Let me backtrack a little bit and come on down here to the older one so I can catch up real quick. Colonel Williams says, Chris from Athens, if Comey ends up being subject to the court of public opinion, not criminal court, how do you think that would affect him in the long run? I'm no supporter of his, and I think he should be convicted of something. I just don't know, again, at the end of the day, how it ultimately affect him in the long run. Several things there. Number one, there is no, if he's convicted, I would say there's probably no chance of ever having a government job again in a future administration. So there's that. I also don't think that he'd be able to carry a security clearance to be able to be a consultant, which is what a lot of them go and do when they leave these highbrow positions. So those two things are off the table for him. And then I also think, though, the court of public opinion, it matters. It does. And part of that, though, is the satisfaction of knowing that somebody who did such egregious things was actually called to account. Whether he will, if he faces jail time, that'll be because the evidence is so overwhelming that even in a liberal venue like the one he's in right now, that they still want to find him guilty. He'll have his day before the jury. He will. But the other piece of this, though, is the court of public opinion is probably not going to change for him because right now conservatives already can't stand him. Liberals love him and think he's a hero. He didn't sell books to conservatives. He sold books to liberals. His books will continue to sell to liberals. But what I'm wondering is what in the course of a very public trial will wind up coming out that was not otherwise going to be deemed, capable of coming out, if that makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles things like McCabe and Jim Baker, who were his associates, testifying opposite of him, who worked with him. And so either they're lying or he's lying or what? Or will he plead? Maybe he'll plead and take a fall. That's what they finally forced General Flynn to do, right? We'll see. Jody from Notasulga, Alabama. There is a Notasulga. Did you know that? I saw you look at me. It's a place.
No.
Notasulga.
I did not know that.
It is.
But now after we had our conversation about, city names, I'm not surprised by any city name. That's not a weird one, but if there's a Lickskillet, Alabama, then I'm sure there's a Notasulga, Alabama.
Notasulga. There have been some great football players come out of Notasulga too. It's not far from here. Picture Talladega on the map, Anniston, draw you a line somewhere there's an exit off the interstate, Notasulga on I-20. Just saying. If you take the Mud Road exit off of Highway 431.
Mud Road exit?
Yeah, or 77. I'm saying Highway 77, Mud Road exit. It takes you through Notasulga all the way to I-20.
Nice. I have to check it out sometime.
Yeah, Mud Road. It's a real mud road, too. Brian from Decatur says the exception of the FBI and the criminals that they are taking off the streets in the thousands and tens of thousands. I don't know what he's saying here. I find this administration's prosecutorial efforts extremely disappointing. Okay. There appears to be such an abundance of low-hanging fruit, but this is the only thing they come up with, the only person. Well, Brian, I would say that you have a fundamental misunderstanding about the means by which the justice system works. You don't rush into a grand jury, all right? Evidence has to be brought together. Evidence has to then be triaged and put together in such a way that it is packaged so that the things that can be proven are proven. And then it has to convene a grand jury. Once the grand jury is impaneled, they have to present the evidence. And then after the evidence is presented, they have to wait for the grand jury to hand down or not hand down an indictment. And so that being said, there's all kinds of things. There's discovery opportunity. There's warrants. There's the gathering of the evidence. And all of that takes time. I would go ahead and say this was extremely fast, to be honest with you. As someone who works in the legal system, I will tell you the fact that they got to an indictment within
where are we? 8 months of the new DOJ being seated. By the way, Pam Bondi didn't have her job on day one. So it takes a DOJ getting seated and then having U.S. attorneys, which, by the way, in that venue, we went through 2 U.S. attorneys. So the fact that they've got an indictment from a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia within, 9 months of Trump taking office, that's actually epically fast.
Yeah. By the way, we never read Jody from Southwest text. We just talked about her name or where she's from.
Well, I didn't read the text.
No. We just talked about Nadasolga.
Well, what was I doing? He says, Colonel, do you see Comey trying to contaminate the jury pool by making a public statement about he and his wife knew the risk he was taking by standing against Trump? Yes, I did see that. And I will be honest with you, some are going to say that Trump kind of did the same thing by trying to tweet out that he thought there ought to be indictments. I disagree. Everybody already knew what Trump stood. Trump's been saying that for years. Comey on the other side is trying to get his narrative. And this is what he always does. He's such a freaking prima donna. Comey is the absolute drama queen, and he's gonna start making the podcast rounds. I guarantee you.
Yeah, of course.
His legal team is going to get him on all the right podcasts. Who will handle him? He'll be on Rachel Maddow. He'll be doing all the the Joy Reid will have him on. They'll opine about how evil Trump is, and then next thing you know, liberals will love him even more, and conservatives will hate him even more.
I mean, he's already gotten himself in front of camera with a suit and tie on, saying, "It's better to live like this than to die on your knees." It's like, yeah, okay. Says the guy who committed crimes, federal crimes. That's like when people say, "Well, Kash Patel is going to be gone after when the Democrat comes in." It's like, not if he doesn't commit crimes. He's not going to.
That's right.
And it wasn't Trump that did this; it was the grand jury. So
that's exactly right.
None of that makes any sense.
That's exactly right. Matt from Madison says. He was going back to his last text. He had said, sounds like a coup d'etat. And then he replied back to me, not knowing what he meant, saying, I was referencing the attempted overthrow of your show by JP and the Ruffians. Oh,
no, that's me and Emily still have a prophecy to overthrow Dale Jackson's show. So I can only do 2 coups. I can't do two coups at once.
This is not a coup. It's not a coup when I say, hey, JP, would you handle this for me?
Yeah.
John from Athens says, Colonel, you are spot on why they didn't give him a pardon. However, why didn't he testify in D.C.? He knew if he got caught lying, he would have a better judge if Trump won and not Judge Jeanine. I can't answer for you. I don't know. Jack from Huntsville says, I had to turn off the Ryder Cup to listen to JP on sports. JP is a can't miss on Fridays. U.S. can't buy a putt right now, he says.
Appreciate it, man. And yeah, I agree.
Jack from Huntsville, thank you. Dustin from Hillsborough says, say it with me, JP, go Reds.
I love the Reds. Actually, the first MLB game I ever went to was at the Reds Stadium in Cincinnati. We were there seeing family, and I don't remember it because I was a baby. That was the first game I ever went to, so I like the Reds.
Weasel from Decatur checking in. A wild weasel from Decatur, a screaming weasel from Decatur says, yeah, he was affirming what I said earlier. Governor Kathy Hochul was soundly booed every time her name was mentioned during the opening ceremonies of the Ryder Cup.
Nice. I didn't even see that, but that's encouraging.
So I heard it last night. I was watching Jesse Waters and Adam Carolla was on, and Jesse brought that up. He said, and it's her state. Trump comes in, he's cheered.
Yep.
She comes in, she's jeered. And Adam Carolla made the point. He said, you know what's funny? I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, you know what's funny? These are golf fans. These are the people who sip mimosas and are told to be quiet all day, and they do golf claps, and they're booing loudly.
Yeah, exactly. But this is also the crowd that chants USA every second they can. And so it seems like a pretty patriotic crowd. If a patriotic crowd doesn't like Kathy Hochul, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Ryder Cup has a whole different feel, doesn't it?
It does. It's like the Olympics of golf. It's awesome.
John from Minor. John says, however could Bruce Pearl even ever be accused of hating black people? He's a successful college basketball coach. Listen.
Because he's not.
That's right. And then Adam from Athens says, if Auburn can decide they won a national championship, why not a game?
Well, he said a national championship. I think it was 5.
I would like to point out that this show is so fair and even-minded that I was willing to read Adam from Athens' text.
There you go. And I defended Bruce Pearl. So there you go.
But you still wouldn't say the Levisville Village on the Plains.
Nah, I can do that. That's a little bit too far.
Hey, real quick before we go to the break, I got to tell you about Inspire Advisors. So you heard a little while ago, we did the JP on Sports segment brought to you, by the way, every week by our friends at Inspire Advisors. Inspire Advisors. Paul Breyer and his team are excellent at what they do at helping you develop a great return on investment for your investment portfolio, putting aside money for retirement, saving money just for a rainy day. The bottom line is you might want to look at what you're investing in, because you may be shocked to find out that some of the companies that are in your portfolio are actually with groups that you would never support because of what they stand for. Well, the folks at Inspire Advisors, they can help you with what's known as biblically responsible investing. They're excellent at BRI. It's a thing, man. BRI, biblically responsible investing. They can help you look and determine whether there's wokeness or anti-Christian bias in the companies that are in your portfolio, and help you find reasonably good alternatives to keep your ROI going good while your BRI is in place. So that being said, if you want to get with the folks at Inspire Advisors and find out more, all you got to do is go to their website. It's www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's www.moneypatternwealth.com. Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors would love to talk to you. Tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back and jump on into the next segment. Military Minded. Got some things happening on the military scene. I'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Relationship, with a catch. It was relationship with purpose. And also, oh, by the way, if you don't love Jesus, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
So it was true friendship, but we earned the right to share our faith, we called it. And there's a passage of scripture just came to me while we're sitting here talking, hearing you say it. I believe it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians. It says, because we loved you so much, we were content not just to share the gospel, but our very lives as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the gospel's really important, but I'm even going to share who I am in a relationship with you. That's where Charles was, it sounds like.
Yep, 100%.
Very cool. All right, so you're hanging out with Charles.
Hanging out with Charles. We're at Walsenburg about a year in. I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. He gets shipped to Sterling Correctional Facility. So I'm there on my own. Huerfano County Correctional Center in Walsenburg was a private prison. So it's like Corporations Correction of America, or I guess they call it some other company now, Core Civic. It was one of those prisons, and it got shut down. And so I get moved to Benton County, which is another Core Civic prison. It was Corrections Corporation of America at the time. I'm there for 6 months, and then they moved me to Canyon City, to Arrowhead Correctional Center, which is like Camp Cupcake, okay? And so they moved me to Camp Cupcake, and they didn't know they made a mistake. With my sentence and how much time I have, I'm not allowed to be at Camp Cupcake, right? I'm not supposed to be. And I'm there for like 2 months, and it's up in the mountains in Canyon City, Colorado. I'm like, man, I can get used to this. It was like God gave me a little vacation, and then once they figured it out, they ended up shipping me to Sterling Correctional Facility. I walk out on the yard at Sterling Correctional Facility, which is a massive prison, right? There's 4 separate yards, so I didn't have to land on the yard with him. But I walk out on they call it the 20s yard where I was, and boom, there's Charles.
How about that?
Right away. So
back together again.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and he was a softball coach. That was his way of doing evangelism. He put together a softball team, and it was like, is it? I remember how shocked I was when I walked into a medium security prison. So there's like killers and everything in this prison, and there's a softball team which requires these things called metal bats. I'm like, they have metal bats in prison? Like, that seems counterintuitive.
Who thought this was okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did. He coached a softball team, and I was the third baseman, and that was his way that he would evangelize guys. And so I get to Sterling, and he's like, hey, what was great about Sterling is they had grass. So I was excited to play softball there, but that's neither here nor there. And so he's like, man, you want to play softball again? Yeah. So he's just doing the same thing, friends, ministering, planting seeds. And he goes, man, Brian, you got parole coming up in a couple of years. You really need to get you some certificates for the parole board. I'm like, great. And he's like, well, I'm the chaplain's assistant. I can get you into some programs. And the chaplain's office was over all the programs, secular or otherwise. I'm like, cool, yeah, get me in. And he gets me into them, and it's they're faith-based programs.
Ah.
And so I got in there, and I'm like, Charles. So I get in.
That gospel in on you again.
He did. And but it was really interesting. And I get in there, and the first program was like kumbaya, come as you are. It was very, it was not very high theology. It was not rigorous. It was just like, we want to love on you. But in that program, there was like 5 or 6 other guys that were like Charles, guys who'd been down for like 20 years that were men, and they were steeped in the word. And I got around those guys, and I'm just like, geez, like I'm drawn to this, but I can't admit it. And so that program ends, and I went to Charles. I'm like, hey man, I think I need some more certificates for the parole board. And he's like, okay,
wink, wink, nod, nod.
And so he gets me into this next one, Well, it was very high theology, and it was very rigorous, and it was very much, this is what the Word of God says. It's called The Truth Project with Dr. Del Tackett, which is Christian Worldview and Apologetics.
I got it written down. I was going to ask you about it.
So good. Like, I highly recommend everything Del Tackett does. Everyone should just go and look at all of it. I mean, he did Answers in Genesis. He does The Truth Project. He's got, so many great things. Watch, but what this one is Christian Worldview and Apologetics. You come in, you watch an hour-long video, and then you have an hour-long table discussion afterwards. And I would watch the hour-long video that was, this is what the Word of God says, this is this, but it's like applying it to creation and politics and culture. And it was
giving you a base.
Yeah. And it was so good. Yeah, so good. But when you're not a Christian, it's not so good, right? And so I'm like, this is bullcrap. I hate this. You guys are stupid. And I told those guys at the table, if you believe this crap, you guys are idiots. You're stupid. And I always tell people, it's like, just because they're Christians doesn't mean they're not convicts, okay? And so, like, you tell someone, even us, like, if someone came up and, like, put their finger in our face and said, you're stupid for believing Jesus, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't punch him in the face, right? But so here I am in prison doing just that, and Charles is just done. He's just, like, throwing his hands in the air. He's like, oh, my gosh. And so this goes on for, like, 2 or 3 weeks where I'm, like, full tilt arguing with these guys. And we walk back to the unit, and so here's the education building. Our unit's over here, and there's a sidewalk that you got to walk around like that. And we're walking back, and we get to about right here, and Charles just looks over at me, and he says, Brian, why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? Jesus being to give him a chance, right? And for whatever reason, in God's sovereignty, as I look at it,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, it's Friday afternoon. We're going to switch gears here, going to Dipper number 2, military-minded. So I will say this is a bit of a mystery. I'm wondering what's going to happen. There are a lot of people that are saying, why would he do such a thing? Why is it possible? But Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has just summoned all of the U.S. military's top officers, like hundreds of generals and admirals are being all called to Northern Virginia. I think they're meeting at Quantico, Marine Corps Base Quantico. And the directive to come to the meeting did not specify the reason for the gathering. Now, the first thing some people are saying is, what's happening? Is there a world crisis? That's not the way they handle world crisis. They don't call in every general and admiral so they can have a giant confab, like a conference, with all the stars on their shoulders, and say, "Okay, fellas, here's the secret plans." No, there would be basically a need-to-know basis, and there would be a planning phase, and there would be a communications that runs in a different route. Now, what are they doing? I don't know. It may be to set a tone. It may be to address the fact that they're sick of trying to chase wokeness here and there and over here, and DEI here and there and over there. He may be calling them all in to say, you've been given your enough is enough, fix yourselves. And so if there are generals and admirals who are still doing the DEI hires and the fighting back against, merit-based promotion and all the, if that's still happening, then maybe it does take a face-to-face. Maybe the Sec War has to get them in a room and go, we've told you. And if you're not going to toe the line, this is a directive, you will be relieved of command. That may happen. Then again, it may also be because this kind of thing never happens. Maybe it's time for it to happen. Maybe there's actually not just like some evil motive behind the idea of getting together. Maybe it's actually the fact that the senior civilian leader of the U.S. military wants to get the senior military leaders together that he's over in one place and make it far more personal than just doing a Zoom call. And it's a whole lot easier to bring them to him than it is to bring him to all of them in different places. Okay, there's that. The other piece is there has been, am I not mistaken, I think there's an actual directive that there's going to be about a 20% reduction in flag officers. So, yeah, here it is. I got a piece here I pulled off of military.com. Phil, did you go to military.com? I did. Liberal rag, but every once in a while they report something and it's good enough to work with. Military.com does point out that in May of this year,
Secretary Hegseth ordered that the military cut 20% of its 4-star general officers and an additional 10% from all other 1, 2, and 3-star flag officers across the force, and told the National Guard to shed 20% overall of its top positions. And then they've also fired a number, and that's true, and they needed it. So the question is this a meeting all in one place so they can basically be told, we wanted you to hear from us personally. This is the way it's about to come down. I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is there's a lot of speculation out there about what is happening with the fact that for the first time ever, roughly 800 generals and admirals are all being called to one meeting. And I heard other people saying, this is dangerous. He put them all in one place like that. Not really. They're going to degrade readiness. No, they're not. Let's be honest. If you think for a fact that the general or the admiral runs everything in their operation, they have people who run it and they sign off on it. So being gone to a 2-day conference is not going to stop readiness. But I'm still curious what it is.
I've heard some people speculate that, Putin's been doing some kind of reckless activity and invading people's airspace, and, maybe Iran is acting up a little bit. And some people are saying how this is going to show Putin, we're serious. We're bringing all of our generals together and we're serious about you. I was like, I don't know if that really, I don't know about that either.
There'll be some readiness briefings. There'll be some force pro briefings. There'll be some, high level discussions about what's happening on the world stage and the different combatant commanders. And there may be a big realignment coming. There's also, and I've got it here in fact, I'll tell you what, I'll pull it up right now. How much time have I got? Yeah, I got it. Let's do this. I got a piece here that I pulled off of Defense News. One of the things that also may be coming out of this giant confab of flag officers is that the Pentagon's adding like a new top national security focus. Trump has the America First agenda, right? Well, the America First agenda doesn't stop at the Pentagon. The America First agenda is very likely going to be noting that we are developing a brand new strategy to spend our majority focus on homeland and Western Hemisphere. Instead of pivoting, to the Middle East, pivoting to, the Far East, and, China, Taiwan. I think what we're about to hear is there's going to be an executive push that the Pentagon focus its primary energies on homeland defense and Western Hemisphere, because securing the homeland comes first. It's going to be everything from sealing the borders, maintaining sovereignty, territorial integrity, Golden Dome. What does it take to beef up the National Guard, the use of National Guard and military, when it's allowed, when it's not on civilian grounds. And so all those things, I suspect what you're going to see is we do not want to see another 9/11. And so there's going to be a focus on what it means to secure the homeland, and in doing so, to also secure the Western Hemisphere and create that safe enclave that we believe we have to have in order to be more effective on the world stage. Military minded, I got a little more. You might want to hear what's about to happen with the agendas that the Biden administration had in place for the military. And oh, by the way, what about what's happening with the Coast Guard? Are they coming up in the world? Is there a new branch? We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio.
That was the moment, okay? And all my guard, all my, defensive mechanisms, for whatever reason, I just said, okay. And kind of as I said earlier, I knew God was real, but I didn't understand Jesus. And he's asking me to give Jesus a chance, not God, but Jesus, which was different. I said, okay. So I went back to my cell and prayed, as I often did. And I said, God, if I need to believe this Jesus character was truly your son, these were my problems with Jesus, okay? And it turns out they're pretty big issues. Said if this Jesus character was truly your son, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect, I'm scoffing as I say all this, I'm like, he lived a perfect life, that he died and his death did something for me, and that he rose from the dead. God, if I need to believe that to be okay with you, I need you to show me something, because I'm having a really hard time with this. So I go to sleep that night, and I have a horrible, horrible nightmare. I mean, it was a crazy nightmare, and I still remember, like, a lot of it, which is crazy, but it didn't make a lot of sense what was happening in it, like flashing faces. It even felt demonic, right?
Well, it probably was.
Yeah, and I'm falling off of a cliff at the end of it. And right before I hit the ground, I wake up, like when you're falling in a
Like
dream.
real life wake up.
Yeah, like
Okay.
wake up, whoa. And the only thing I can see, it's completely dark in the cells, and we have those old red digital clocks, right? And so the only thing you can see in the room when I wake up is the red digital clock, and it says 3:16.
Huh.
And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16, and it just boom, right? And that was the answer to my question, right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. You asked, I answered, buddy. It's Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to church. So I did. I waited till 8, and I went to Christian services, as they call it in prison, because they have to be politically correct. Went to Christian services, and I don't remember. I sat as far off to the side as I could with my friend Ramon that was on the softball team. Ramon's such a cool dude. He's a giant black dude, just yoked. I'm talking like waist this big, perfect six-pack, pecs this big, arms just huge dude. And I had this thing where, and it was a problem in prison. It's the Ned Flanders Christianity. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. If you ever watched The Simpsons, Ned Flanders. Oh, yeah. Okay, so like okie diddly okie doke. It's like this soft kind of weak, effeminate, gay thing. Like a lot of Christians, they're like nicer than God and holier than Jesus. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing. And so I always rubbed me the wrong way. But here's Ramon, this dude. Like anyway, I'm not gonna like. He's not that guy. That's what I'll say, right? And he was the guy that brought the blood gang from California to Colorado, cold-blooded killer, until God got a hold of him. And now he's like the prison evangelist. These young guys come in, and he was in Unit 21, which is where you go when you first get to Sterling. And then from Unit 21, you get sent out to all the other buildings. But they kept him in there, and these new guys would come in, specifically young black guys, and he would like body him up and be like, this is the gospel. You know what I mean? And like it was crazy. It was really interesting. So anyway, this is the guy that I went to go sit in church with, because I don't want to be around any of the Ned Flanders guys. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to let Charles think that he won, And so I sit off to the side in the back. And I don't remember anything Chaplain Davis said. I don't remember what the sermon was on at all. But at the end, he says, all right, guys, we're going to do an invitation. I look over at Ramon. I'm like, brother, what's an invitation? I just knew he was going to be like, brother, that's where you invite Jesus into your heart. But that's not what he said. He said, brother, if you got something hindering your relationship with God, you can go down there and pray with that man about it. And he stepped aside because he already knew that God was on me. As they say in the South, I've learned some Alabama euphemisms. God was on me like a pack of dogs on a 3-legged cat. Anyway, so I walk the aisle, as it were, the proverbial aisle, get down there. Chaplain Davis grabs my hand, puts his other hand on my shoulder. He says, Mr. Dawson, how can I pray for you? So look, chap, I'm not here to make any decisions. I just want to pray that God would soften my heart so the truth can come in, because I feel him working on me, but I'm fighting him with everything I have. And we get done praying, and he's just got tears pouring down his face. And Chaplain Davis is not a tears down the face guy. He's not a hugger. He's not a crier. He's just, he's a man. And again, I'm a man and I hug and I cry, but like he's not that kind of man. And
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all will talk about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn War Eagle, and then straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning, home of the airborne. And then, by the way, there's big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure, and that's just radio. Whew. That's just radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web live streaming the show, places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, our website, rightside.media.org. And then, by the way, there's all y'all that podcast, catching it after the fact. And we've got like 353,000 downloads of the podcast of this show. All that to say, you guys, hey, wherever you catch the show, wherever you're listening to my voice right now, I want you to know we can see it and we know it and we appreciate it.
And thank you very much. You're the reason why we do what we do. All you Rightside ruffians, thank you very much. Let me tell you a couple other things military-minded. I know I got a bunch of green suitors. I got a bunch of people out there in places like Redstone Arsenal, Maxwell Air Force Base, Anniston Army Depot, all you National Guard and Reserve folks that are out there, and you got us dialed in, and then all you guys that are out there, not necessarily green suitors, but you work in the defense industry or your GS civilians. Thank you for your service, every one of you. You might want to know, and I'll just do this quick story on this one. National Guard, according to American Military News, National Guard has exceeded its 2025 recruiting goals. So listen, I mean, the National Guard is like 20% of the joint force. It's a huge piece. In the global war on terror, it became very evident that it is now the National Guard and the reserves are an active of a part of the overall force structure. When I say active, I don't mean like they're active duty. I mean they are actively engaged. They are truly an active reserve component. That being said, they've exceeded their in strength goals. They just blew it out of the water, which has, by the way, been across the board since November of 2024, last year, right after the election. The War Department has achieved the strongest recruiting performance in over 30 years. Go figure. We have now reached, according to overall military recruiting, is now at 106% of their target. They were at 40-year lows in the Biden administration. Remember that? 40-year lows. Now we're at 30-year highs, 106% of mission on recruiting, including the National Guard, which is awesome. So that's just cool. I got a couple other pieces. Which one? I'll go this one. I'll do this one first. Secretary Hegseth, another story off of American Military News I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands. The Pentagon confirmed on Tuesday that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has terminated what is known as the Defense Advisory Committee for Women in the Services. Leftists went crazy. Liberals on places like CNN, MSNBC were like, he's doing away with the commission that takes care of women's rights. No, he did away with the commission that he said promoted a divisive feminist agenda that did nothing for readiness. All it did was argue about feminist issues, and it did nothing for readiness. Daily Signal had reported that the Defense Advisory Committee for Women cost the Department of War, how much? $1,128,000, which was including labor and various expenses. So it's like, okay, why are we spending this money? So they can get together and complain? The reality is women are getting equal share of everything right now in the U.S. military. No one's holding back careers. They're in all the combat arms now. With the exception of a few places, you're still going to wind up seeing women being given opportunity. They are also being told that it's going to be equal standards. So don't expect to be women want that job, but they want a different standard to get that job. Not anymore. Last one I got for you, military-minded. How many coasties we got out there? How many coasties? All you Coast Guardsmen, listen, I don't know if y'all realize, but the Coast Guard is like pretty much always at war, if you know what I'm saying. We're talking about live ammo daily missions. They are doing drug interdictions. They're doing rescues. They're patrolling our coasts. They are doing what it takes to preserve and defend the homeland. And they fall under the Department of Homeland Security. They're not a Department of War department. But here's the interesting dynamic. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem are now proposing a plan to establish a new civilian Secretary of the Coast Guard. That's cabinet level. All of a sudden, the Coast Guard might stop being considered that department of. No, they may be considered basically the department that has its own secretary sitting on the Joint Chiefs potentially. So yes, as currently the Coast Guard is the only armed service without a cabinet level civilian secretary. It falls under DHS, but it does not have any equivalents in the secretaries of the Army, Navy, or Air Force. I mean, wow. So the proposal is now gaining momentum in the Trump administration and Congress. It seeks to align the Coast Guard with the organizational standards of the others. And what that'll do, it'll raise their visibility. It'll raise their notoriety. It'll also raise their budgeting, I guarantee. But if you're looking at what I said earlier, take this in totality with the story that I had earlier, that the Pentagon is now shifting its strategy to focus in a much larger, perhaps even primary way towards homeland and Western Hemisphere. Well, that's Coast Guard. Coast Guard's going to wind up having a larger mission set. Coast Guard is going to wind up having more to do in not just open water, but in, dark water too. Things like border patrol on the Rio Grande, but whatever. All I'm saying is Coast Guard is about to possibly get its own civilian secretary cabinet level position, and that'll be a first. And it'll be a whole new day for the Coasties. They actually got their own cool movie too a few years ago. The one with Kevin Costner and what's his name?
I can't tell you.
Oh, dadgummit. I can see his face, but I can't say his name. Kevin Costner, Coast Guard movie. Come on. Help me. It's a brain cramp.
Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. That's who it was. Ashton Kutcher.
Coast Guard has an epic job. Hunt down pirates and drug smugglers. And
they got some. I mean, if you watch some of the videos of them interdicting boats on open water.
Yeah. Jumping on submarines, pounding on them.
And can you imagine being a Coast Guard rescue swimmer is actually one of the hardest things to become. Because can you imagine jumping into the frigid waters of the North Pacific up near Alaska?
No,
please. Just you're in the Bering Sea and you're up there jumping into the frozen waters to rescue somebody. Good gosh. Tony from Elkmont just says the movie is The Guardian. It was a great movie. Have you not seen it?
No.
It was actually really good.
I've not seen that movie.
Add that to your daggum list.
The ever-long list.
Yes, the ever-long list of movies that you really ought to see, but it was great. Kevin Costner, Ashton Kutcher, and a few others you'll recognize when you see it, but great movie. Paul from Decatur says, I was a member of the 20th Special Forces Group in Alabama. Great guard duty. I opened a lot of doors for my military career, several deployments above and below the table. 2-week-long summer camps were extended. Yeah. By the way, thank you, by the way, for your service, Paul, and you and I both know 20th Group quite well. But it also, when I took my battalion command with the 167th Infantry, I gave them we had our first day after the guidon change ceremony. I met with my senior leaders, and I told them a number of things about my command philosophy. And then one of the things I said at the end was, the new call sign is Titan 6. That was my call sign, Titan 6. And then I said, the other thing you'll need to know is if anybody ever uses the phrase summer camp with me, you're fired. We don't go to summer camp. Kids at church go to summer camp. We train. And they all went, Roger that. Badger from Athens says, happy Friday to everyone. Have a great weekend, Rightside Ruffians. Thank you. Jeff from Athens also saying The Guardian. Yes, indeed. Ed P. from Huntsville says, Phil, we now know what the big meeting is about. And it has, what is this?
You have to scroll down to read it.
Oh, bring me Bat Boy. Pete Hegseth. Okay. I don't know what this is all about. Okay. Lynn from Tanner, Alabama says, I'm just now joining your show on my way home from work. You may have already talked about this. What's your take on Pete Hegseth? Okay, I just did. Thank you very much.
Go back and listen to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, Lynn, I think, Lynn, you may have actually jumped in either right before. I think
it was just after.
That was just after. So, Lynn, I don't have a 100% knowledge. I do believe that what you're about to hear is that there's a command philosophy being given face-to-face. It's an opportunity to get everybody together. And there may also be discussion about the fact some of you will be losing your jobs because we're going to wind up cutting 20% of the flag officers. So wait and see. Fritzy from Huntsville says Benning might be going back to Moore. Nah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I think Benning's going to stay Benning. Here's what I suggest, Fritzy. I saw that article, something being floated through Congress. I don't think it's going to happen. But what I think should happen is they might want to go ahead and name the MCO. It's the the Maneuver Center of Excellence. That's where they train all the infantry and armor officers and NCOs. I think they ought to name the MCO the Moore MCO. I think they should. I think that'd be great. Hal Moore was a hero. He's one of the only ones that the base renaming thing put a name on that I didn't roll my eyes, because Hal Moore was a stud. But I did not like the fact that Benning lost its name. So I say give Hal Moore something else. Keep it at Benning. Shag Nasty the Atheist says, might as well fly a flag that says the Chinese way is better at this point. What is he talking about?
Read the text before it.
Oh, the text before it. So I never was a fan of Team America World Police agenda, but seeing it all fall apart this way is somehow even more cringy and embarrassing than Bush's attempts at empire building. What? So let me get this straight. Your text is, you don't want us to go out there and do things that are
interventionist on the world stage. But you also don't want us to pull back to homeland defense because it's Trump. That's what I'm reading. It was Trump bad. Let's just go ahead and say, Shag Nasty, your text should start off with Trump bad. There you go. About to weigh in?
Essentially. Nah, I was just going to say, yeah.
Last two texts, and we'll go to a break. David in Cortland says, David from Cortland, great show, great monologuing. Comey had it coming. What goes around comes around. Just ask the rock group Rat. By the way, it's Rat with 2 T's. It's Rat with 2 T's. And then Tom from Elkmont is in the text line. Tom, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much. He says, with the statute of limitations running out, Clinton was waiting for it to pass. Explains her silence over the past year. That's probably true. That's interesting.
By the way, we just got a text in from Mike from Florence. I just want to bring it up because we watched some of this movie together. But just the best summary movie of all time is Crimson Tide. Which
have you watched it?
I watched the clips that we watched.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. But I have to say, James Gandolfini, one of my favorite actors ever, was great in what I've seen in that movie. He was awesome.
And so was Denzel Washington.
Yes.
So was Gene Hackman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like a legendary group of people.
Yeah.
There was Viggo Mortensen was in there in his early part of his career. Great flick. And even though I'm an Auburn fan, the fact that they were standing there in the rain right before they got on their submarine and yelled "Roll Tide" in the rain, I thought that was kind of cool. Paul from Decatur says, sorry again about the summer camp term. Do some push-ups, Paul. Do some push-ups. Mark from Decatur says, I tuned in late on JP on Sports. How does he predict the the ALGA game?
Yeah.
What do you predict? Did you predict? You didn't predict, did you?
I didn't. I'm worried.
Predict.
But
come on, be bold.
I got to roll with my Tide, man. I got to go 31-28. Give me Bama.
31-28.
I think it's going to be
give you Bama between the hedges.
I think it's going to be a close one. We don't lose to Georgia. We don't lose to Georgia. We figure it out. Just saying.
Paul from Decatur, who I know is a military guy, because he just said something we don't hear very often. He said, "I'll beat my boots." That's a punishment in the military. Just by your way, just so you know. Just
beating your boots.
It's called squat thrusts. You have to bend down, slap your ankles, bend down, slap your ankles, bend down, slap your ankles, bend down, slap your ankles. Keep doing it until I get tired. And then Brian for Harvest, you may find this funny. The 2 highest rating rap songs right now are "The Devil's a Democrat" and "Charlie Kirk" by Tom McDonald. Wow. That's funny. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. It's Friday afternoon. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
See him weeping in front of 130 inmates. I was like, what just happened? And I count that the moment that God saved me. And so I leave there, and Charles gives me a Bible, Thomas Nelson, New King James Bible. Here you go. And I said, start reading the story of Joseph. And so I get back to my cell, and I start reading the story of Joseph, and I'm hooked. I can't get enough, feasting on God's word. And that goes on for about 9 months. It went on long past that, but about 9 months into me feasting on God's word, really just being shaped and molded by his word, loving it, feasting on it, it changing me. Mm-hmm. About 9 months into that, I look around and all my friends in there have pen pals. They've got some girl they're writing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, let's see. So I call my mom. My mom was running a Facebook page for me, and so what that looks like is she logs in, but like the account she logs into has my picture on it, where I'm not in prison. That's my bait. Look, I'm not in prison, but I really am. And so she's running this Facebook page.
So your mom's catfishing for you.
She's catfishing for me, yeah. And we were very unsuccessful at first, and so I say, basically like, look, don't reach out to these girls. They're from my bad past.
It's cool that your mom was doing that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we reached out to all these girls that were like healthy and went to college and weren't drug addicts. Well, I don't know if you know this about healthy girls who aren't drug addicts. They're not real big on writing guys in prison. So those, you have to pick one or the other. You can either have the unhealthy girl that'll write.
I've never studied that, but I can
yeah,
imagine it.
Yeah, no,
okay.
it's there. And so I struck out completely, and I said, okay, God, I can't take any more rejection. If you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to have to do it, because I'm done.
We're talking old school, write it down on a piece of paper, pen pal.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, everybody in there, yeah.
Put it in an envelope, snail mail it out. Yep.
Correct, yep. And
the prison probably has to read your letter to make sure it doesn't say anything, right?
I think they read a lot more of the ingoing than they do the outbound, but it depends. Okay. Like if you're writing from prison to prison, they read both. Like they have some system. I don't know how they do it, but there's definitely people who wrote some stuff they shouldn't have that got in trouble, and I can't remember which direction the mail was going. But you don't seal it.
Yeah.
You put it in there and it's open. I remember that now that you say that, because I always say, oh yeah, I sealed it, but I actually no, you don't. You put your thing in there and you put your stamp on it and you drop it in the mailbox, and then they go through and open it, and look at it, and then send it out. So forgot about that now that you bring that up. So no one wants to write me. Said, okay, God, you're gonna have to do it. Told my mom I'm done. Whatever. And so I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe it was a month, I don't know, goes by. I say, call my mom just to check in, see how she's doing. And she goes, hey, Brian, do you know this girl named Christina Ewan? I said, yes, ma'am.
You've known her for a long time.
A long time. So Christina Ewan, back in Derby, Kansas, where my dad was. Said we grew up together. I was head over heels in love with her, all throughout middle school and high school. We went to 8th grade graduation dance together. After that was the first of many times I professed my undying love to her. And I always say that she gave me the Heisman. It was like, I just want to be friends. Just
friend zone.
Friends. And so I got friend zoned hardcore. And that went on literally from 8th grade to the beginning of 12th grade before I left Derby. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you laid out all my yearbooks from kindergarten to 12th grade and said you can pick one girl to marry, it's Christina every single time. She's like, oh, okay, well, I said, why? And she said, well, she wants to write you. Excuse me? I said, well, yeah, Christina wants to write you. I was like, does she know I'm in prison? Yeah, she knows you're in prison. Okay, well, that's...
Despite the picture on the Facebook page,
yeah,
I actually am in prison wearing greens right now.
Correct. And so that's it. So my mom's catching the thing where Christina's thinking she's messaging me. So that's how that happened. So Christina is on Facebook, and Brian Dawson shows up as a suggested friend. And she's like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Brian in 10 years. Clicks, sends a message. And then my mom's like, actually, this isn't Brian. This is Brian's mom. He's in prison. To which most women say, oh, dear God, and would run.
Yeah,
but
unfriend.
Not Christina. And she said, well, I'd love to write him. And so again, I say, God, you're going to have to do it. And God did it, right? I didn't send her a friend request. We didn't reach out to her. She found me and reached out to me.
Yeah.
And my mom said, hey, this is what's going on. She said, I want to write him. So God did that. And so I got her address from my mom and wrote her the first letter, though. I said, look, I didn't get drunk and run somebody's dog over. Like, this isn't like some fluke thing. Like you hear about this weird guy that got thrown, like never did anything wrong.
Now really in prison for reasons.
Yeah, I belong here. I earned it.
Like real prison reasons.
Correct. And so I said, but God has saved me and I am changed. And everybody in here says that, by the way, but like I'm an open book and I'm willing to prove it to you. And she writes me back. And again, in my mind, she was, the girl that she was in middle school and high school. I mean, she was just perfect, like in every way. She was going to go on and be married to a doctor, and the 3,500 square foot house, the white picket fence, and 2.5 kids, and the minivan and the dog, like.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower, y'all, like a superpower. Real quick, the grades are in, and then I'll go to the phones. John from Huntsville says, JP and J-Town both get an A++ for their equally spectacular performances. However, today's winner is obviously Phil Williams. Whoop, whoop. With a perfect A++. Congratulations, and War Eagle. Thank you, sir. By the way, JP, I've already got Georgia locked in 28-17 over Alabama, and I hope you'll fill out your football picks so we can take first place again. So you can take first place again unless you want to give me another freebie.
Nah, I think I'll fill them out.
Oh, all right. Listen, Luann from Huntsville did text in. I thought it was worthy. I got to read it real quick. Phil, I believe we're about to see a generational military pivot away from defending other countries, but bringing the ultimate focus here. We're vulnerable. This includes taking care of our borders. Our country must not give away resources to other countries. And listen, I appreciate that. There's going to be times and places we have to go overseas. Being an expeditionary military is an important part of what we do. But I think we have to make sure the homeland is ready, because the days when the U.S. is not going to be attacked are fewer and further between, I think. Let me go to the phones right now. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, this is young whippersnapper, Phil Williams.
I heard it. Hang on. You know what? It's time. JP, we're going to sing. You ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeff from Indiana. Happy birthday to you. Whoop, whoop. Happy birthday, man.
You better get that copyrighted. That might be a #1 hit.
Oh.
Yeah, going
I'm telling you, it's like dog years at that point, isn't it? I mean, you're adding them on by exponential means.
Yeah, I even had to order me one of those Rightside sniper bullet glasses
Hey,
for my birthday.
Did you really? Outstanding. That's good. I'm glad, man. Thank you very much for doing it, and I hope you enjoy it. So, do you have any plans for your birthday this weekend?
Karaoke tonight and eating tomorrow. That's about it.
That's good doings right there. That's America. Well, we talked about a lot of stuff today. We talked about Comey getting indicted. We talked about military stuff. What's on your thoughts right now?
Yeah, on this on statute of limitations on getting all these people now. Yeah. Now, if New York City can suspend the statute of limitations to go after Trump for supposed rape he did, 40 years ago for somebody that don't even know what even happened or where it was at, why can't we suspend the statute of limitations on some of this stuff so we can go after people? Because the administration that was in before this one refused to do anything, basically touting away 4 years of the statute.
Well, statutes of limitations do exist for a reason, because they just do. But that situation with Trump in New York, that wasn't a suspension of the statute. That was the state legislature actually changed the law to allow them to then go after Trump. They changed that law just so they could go after Trump.
Yeah. Well, I'd say we have control of Congress right now. Why can't we change a few things and suspend the statute of limitations or change the law that governs that?
I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to be as petty as them. I want to work within the statutes we got, and apparently they did, because Comey's was going to expire next week, and he was probably already planning his celebration day and then didn't get it. But yeah, I'm wondering who else is coming. I think that John Bolton may be coming, and I think that there's a possibility that John Brennan may face some problems as well. But Brennan, I think we have more time to work with.
Yeah, and I think we need to reconstitute the J6 committee this time with everybody being Republican, since we didn't have no Republicans on the last one, and they destroyed the evidence and everything else. I want to see these 270 odd. FBI informants and everything go up there and testify.
No doubt. I would love to know what their mission was when they were told they were going out there to be in the crowd. What were they told their mission was that day? Why were they being told to go and to what end? What was their purpose? Monitor, arrest and detain, try to prevent, or try to promote problems. And so it's a mess, man. January 6th is the gift that keeps on giving. Is that the music already? All right, Jeff Rowe, happy birthday to you, my brother. The music's already playing. You be safe on the road, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you all very much, and have a good weekend.
See you, buddy. All right, you guys, listen, it is Friday afternoon. We did get you to go home time. And as I always say, there are indeed more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. You guys stay in the fight. We'll see you Monday.